Yeah, imagine that.
Farquaad.
All right, that's me. Yeah, I'm gonna be Farquaad. All right. I set this one like bloody 14 hours before I was due to start. All right, it's live now anyway. I'll just wait a minute, and I hope it's not picking up the bloody thing in the background. Okay, yeah, should be live. Yeah, just anybody could let me know how the audio is because there's washing going on in the background. It shouldn't be too bad because this microphone is actually all right with background noise, so it should be okay. Yeah, how's it going, Jamie? Good to see you, man. Locked in. Awesome. Levels are good. Awesome. Good to hear it. Glad to hear it. Yeah, there's basically because the washing has just been done, and there's a heater on in the background. So, but I don't think it's being picked up on this, so it's okay. I just wanted to test it before I started. Yeah, how's it going, Owen? Good to see you, man. Audio good? Awesome. Glad to hear it. Audio is fine. Some of you may die. Some of you may die, but it is a sacrifice I am willing to make. It's brilliant, isn't it? He says it with that Giga Chad jaw as well. I love it. Nakatani was a bit disappointing. Yeah, a lot of people saying he got a gift. I keep meaning to watch that fight actually because it's one of them fights that I'm seeing mixed reports on. I did watch some highlight of the Inoue fight though, so I'll probably talk about that here. I haven't watched the full thing, but I've seen enough of it to know pretty much how it went. But the Nakatani one, I actually want to watch that start to finish because it just sounds to me like one of them fights where there's going to be kind of a reaction to it from an emotional reaction for people who watch it live, and then obviously watching it in retrospect, knowing the result already, it's one of them ones where it might not seem as bad. And that's just kind of the vibe I get from that fight. So I'm definitely going to sit down and watch it and score it, and probably in my next live I'll talk about it, how I saw it, because I was quite surprised by the official result of that fight. And very rarely do you get a controversial decision in Japan. It's just something that very rarely, if ever, happens over there. Like it does happen from time to time, but very rarely, Inoue did what he was supposed to do. Yeah. Well, do you know what I noticed about Inoue? He was fighting a guy who he might not have been a particularly great athlete or anything, but the guy he was fighting, that Picasso, seemed to have pretty good fundamentals. He had a good high guard. He knew how to bend at the waist and counterpunch. Like I saw there was a clip of the fight where he kind of baits Inoue in by leaning forward with a high guard as if he's just completely like covering up and looking to weather the storm. And then when Inoue opens up to throw his right hand, he got caught with a peach of a left hook. So he was facing a decent slick counterpuncher, a guy who was quite cute in there and knew how to wait for openings. So I think Inoue did the right thing, just being cautious and pacing himself, kind of like he did in the Paul Butler fight. A similar kind of style of opponent. I think Inoue did what he needed to do. Like I agree with what you're saying. I think he's become a more complete fighter now. As he's moved up the weights, he knows he can't just blast everybody out like Mike Tyson or Roy Jones. He knows he needs to play the long game. And sometimes he's just got to win rounds and win on the cards. God bless Sven Otke. It's been a while. Good to see you. How you been? Ability that is there for Nakatani, but he needs to fight at that weight again before Inoue. But oh yeah, definitely you got to favor Inoue without a doubt. Inoue is definitely he's definitely the athlete of the two. He's the bigger puncher, and as we've just previously talked about, he knows how to pace himself, doesn't he? That's the impressive thing about Inoue is, despite being like a devastating knockout puncher, one of the hardest punchers, pound for pound in boxing, he's not a guy who's in love with his power. He knows how to pace himself. He knows how to take his time. Again, we saw that in the Paul Butler fight, and we've seen it now in the Picasso fight. Inoue is a guy who seems to know his limitations, ironically enough, despite being a guy who's just a freak athlete. He seems to know he seems to know how to pace himself, and be economical with his power over 12 rounds if and when he needs to. Like if he's fighting somebody like you know, what's that guy's name? Stephen Fulton, a guy who's got no power. He's just gun ho. He'll go in there and take your head off because he knows there's not really much resistance there. But if he's facing a guy like Picasso or a guy like Paul Butler, guys who are a bit more fundamentally sound and know how to set up counter punches, he knows not to just walk in and be foolish and try to force the knockout. That's what I like about Inoue. He doesn't try to force it. Like if the knockout comes, it comes, but he doesn't always go looking for it, depending on who the opponent is. So yeah, quite impressed with him. He continues to impress me. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people thought he lost. A lot of people thought he won. I think the contention was about the how wide the scores are, you know. Yeah, Keir Starmer doing his best Lord Farquaad impression, trying to send us to fight Russia. Yeah, you will die in Russia for the chosen people who happen to be not Jews but Ukrainian Nazis. You'll die for those people. Yeah, sure. That's just the story of our lives, isn't it? As Brits, we're always dying for somebody. We're always being gaslit into giving up our future and our rights and our benefits and our needs and our interests for the sake of some like shithole country in the Middle East or in Eastern Europe or whatever, or even in America. We're always to die for the chosen people, whoever the chosen people happen to be in any given era. That's just what Brits are always relegated to. I remember that scene in Shrek where Farquaad was in bed and the mirror showed the prince, and you can see something happening under the covers. Yeah, yeah, true. Oh, brilliant! And do you notice on the floor he's got a bearskin rug, and it's the mother bear from the Three Bears story who you see earlier in the movie. So yeah, he must have had her shot and stuffed and turned into a rug. Based. Um, Fights were in Saudi, not Japan. Oh yeah, of course they were. What am I saying? For whatever reason, I had it in my mind that they were in Japan. Yeah, you're right. You're right. They weren't in Japan. My bad. Um, I don't know why I thought they were in Japan. Yeah, yeah, because they touted it as Night of the Samurai. That probably tricked me below threshold into thinking the fights were in Japan. Yeah, you're right. My bad. Yeah, it was in Riyadh. Yeah, bloody every card seems to be in bloody Riyadh now, doesn't it? All that oil blood money springing them all over. I thought Inoue probably should have stopped him. But that's the thing, it's like that old saying. I know it's a bit of a cliche at this point, but win today, look good tomorrow. If you can just pace yourself, not take too many shots, and win on the cards, when you get a fight of consequence, that's when you can really show what you're made of, essentially. And plus, he gets another 12 rounds experience, so no issue with that on my end. There seems to be a reoccurring cock up with Turkey and Saudi fights. Every time they're having cards meant to set up bigger fights, one of the fighters ends up looking average or loses. Yeah, yeah. Again, that's been happening all throughout boxing history. When the perfect example of that would be Oscar De La Hoya and Hopkins were supposed to fight in a massive fight, and then De La Hoya ended up getting his ass kicked, but got bailed out by the judges, so the fight wasn't that big anymore. There's a lot of examples of that kind of thing happening. Yeah, it did look like a pretty good fight. I know it was a clear win for Inoue, but Picasso seemed quite cute to me. He landed the odd counter shot here and there, and he had a good high guard and whatnot. Seemed like a decent opponent to me. Inoue could have stopped Picasso, but yeah, playing the long game, 4 fights in a year, ain't no point taking risks when you're already dominant. Yeah, exactly. Because all it would take is for one of them counter shots to land and for Inoue to get a little bit full of himself, and then all of a sudden he could get dropped or he could get stopped. You never know. So I don't blame him. I mean, it's not like Inoue has anything to prove, really. The guy's already proven he's a warrior. He's had his like orbital bone bashed in a fight, and he's hung in there and won. So he's proven his mettle. He's proven his balls in the past. He doesn't need to go out and prove he's a warrior. I think sometimes it's good to just win today, look good tomorrow. Not saying he didn't look good, but you know what I mean. in fairness to Nakatani, his opponent was enormous for the weight. Yeah, he was a big guy, wasn't he? Inoue will beat Nakatani if they fight soon, unless Nakatani makes some changes to his game quick, or he takes a couple more bouts before Inoue. Yeah, to be honest, I don't see Nakatani as having much of a chance in that fight. I never really did, to be honest. I never really did. Did you see that Joshua went to Nigeria and has been involved in a fatal car crash? I read that for a second there, that comment. I thought you were saying Joshua was dead. I thought that's what you were saying, but no. I'm assuming someone else in the accident died. Is that what you mean by that? Anthony Joshua's not dead, is he? Like, that's not what you're telling me. I'm pretty sure I'd have heard of that. Nah. But yeah, that's sad. That's sad if somebody ended up losing their life in that situation. Heartbreaking, man. AJ needs to stop getting behind the wheel then, if he was the cause of it. Inoue, on an entertainment level, has been truly the best of the past 4 years. He's fought 4 times a year, keeps busy yearly, and shows skills with guts also. Much more active compared to Usyk, yeah. Yeah, Usyk tends to just fight once a year, doesn't he? Whereas Inoue, like you say, he's been fighting like 4 times a year, you know. Morgenthau once said, how will you tell the British you bankrupted the country? And Churchill responded, that's a doleful task. I'll leave that to my successor. Yeah, that's boomer mentality, that, innit? I know technically Churchill wasn't a boomer, but he might as well have been, because he had the mentality of it. We'll enjoy the spoils of post World War II, the economic boom, and then we'll leave the future generations to pay for it. They'll pick up the bill, while we tell them that we were the hard workers and they don't want to work, that they're all lazy bastards. We'll tell them that. While we sit on our asses and enjoy our taxpayer-funded state pensions, which they will never have because the country's in trillions of dollars of debt, that we caused. But we'll be deeds, so who cares? We'll die before that ever becomes a problem, and we'll live our final years in our white gated communities, while the Zoomers, millennials, and Gen Xers have to deal with the importation of the third world. That's the legacy of boomers. And I dread to think what's going to happen to them when their tickers stop and they have to meet their maker. Thoughts on the Nakatani fight? Was it a robbery? I've not seen it yet. But I definitely want to. I only seen highlight. Yep, Churchill was a warmongering scumbag. He was. And he was an alky too. But again, a lot of the normie conservatives worship Churchill like he was Jesus Christ or something. The guy was a alcoholic, like brain dead retard. He was. By the way, looking forward to Usyk massacring Wilder. Could you believe it? Can you imagine that fight actually happens? Like, could you imagine how hilarious that would be to see Wilder like swinging for the fences and missing like literally every single punch, and Usyk just toying with him? That would be funny. Like, Usyk could actually take Wilder out in the first 4 rounds if he wanted to, but I wouldn't mind seeing him just like toy with him and humiliate him for 12 rounds. I wouldn't mind seeing that, Yeah, we were just talking about that. I had Nakatani winning 7-5. Yeah, a few people have. It makes me sick that most British people see him as a hero. All he did was involve us in a war we had but we had to die for the chosen people. And it just so happens that the chosen people at that point in time were Jews. Right now, the chosen people are like blacks, Asians, Indians, and some Jews in certain parts of the world, Islamic terrorists, and of course Ukrainian Nazis. Those are the chosen people right now. It's a melting pot. But back then, the chosen people were the Jews, wasn't it? And we had to die for them because we're the evil white supremacists. Our entire culture and history needs to be exterminated, apparently. Yeah. 2 other people died in the car, but Joshua is alive. Yeah. Oh, lucky him, eh? But who was it that was actually driving? Was it Joshua that was driving, or was it one of his gay lovers, like AKA Skins, or that other gay boy he hangs about with, was it one of them? I'm just assuming. Who knows? I've not even heard about it until now, so I've no idea. Seen wincing in pain in the passenger seat. I like Joshua stopping Paul. Fight was clearly fit. Yeah, of course it was. Again, would it have lasted 6 rounds if it wasn't fit? Would Jake Paul last 6 rounds with someone like Michael Sprott or Matt Skelton? No. Would he last 1 round? I doubt it. But he lasted round 6 against a world class, top 10 ranked heavyweight and former unified champion. Yeah, totally a real fight. Totally. According to the Ring magazine, Inoue has been the only boxer since Larry Holmes in 1983 to defend the Ring magazine belt 4 times a year. Oh, really? Interesting. Do you know, it doesn't surprise me, actually. Oh, yeah, the Inoue fight's on that channel. Do you know, I have watched that channel several times because they've uploaded a lot of recent fights. Like, I think I watched Usyk Fury on that channel at one point, if I remember rightly. What have you got planned for New Year's Eve? Also, I'll probably be working. Well, basically, I'll be working New Year, and then the following week I'm going to Poland. I'm going there for a week, so that'll be quite interesting. Um, yeah, never been there before, so that'll be quite an interesting little trip. But yeah, I'll definitely be working New Year. I wasn't working on Christmas. My Christmas was a bit weird actually because I went on Christmas Eve. I got basically roped into going to a family dinner, which turned out to be one of the most awkward experiences of my life. I'll talk about that a bit later. But it's a bit weird though because I was offered a shift on New Year's Eve. I was actually offered a 12-hour shift, double time, and I had to turn it down. One because I don't like I've never worked Christmas before and I don't intend to. But also because I'd already had plans to go to this family dinner with my girlfriend's relatives, and it was so embarrassing. Again, I'll tell you guys the story a bit later. It was classic boomer shit. That's what it was. But basically, Christmas Day, well, Christmas Eve, once we had the dinner, we went to her mum's house and stayed the night. And yeah, Christmas Day we just stayed over. We just stayed the whole day at her mum's and had dinner and all that. It was good. I enjoyed it. But obviously I couldn't make a live stream. Like ordinarily I do a live stream on Christmas Eve. I couldn't do that because I wasn't in the house. I was at her mum's. So yeah. It's kind of a weird Christmas. It kind of just flew by. It didn't feel as Christmassy as it often does. But yeah, it was all right. Usyk will carry what? Yeah, I could see him just like letting Wilder swing himself off balance and just playing with him, toying with him. Absolute mismatch. While millions of people were dying in World War II, Churchill was doing photo shoots to make himself look like a tough guy instead of the obese pleb that he was. Yeah, the obese, like literally mentally retarded, alcoholic idiot. Looked like the Penguin off of Batman. He was a little like midget, fat, bald guy who had never been to war in his life or anything. He was just a career politician, as far as I'm aware. I know they like pretend he was like a war hero and they pretend he did all this and that. A lot of it is complete bollocks. But yeah, he was just a complete fraud, complete joke. And the ironic thing about it is that the dude was a racist. He absolutely hated blacks. He hated he hated Asians. The dude was a literal white supremacist, and people forget about that. So it's like people on the left who sort of like revere Churchill because he stood up to fascism, and he defeated Nazis because reasons. And then people on the right love him because he's a veteran, he's a war hero, blah blah blah. He was such a based, like old-fashioned Englishman from down the pub. It's like people on both sides of the normie spectrum love Winston Churchill and think he was amazing. I think the guy was a piece of shit. And I think all boomers, to be honest, hashtag not all, you know what I'm saying? The vast majority of guys from that era were just pieces of shit, if truth be told. Let's be honest. Usyk would destroy Wilder prime. Yeah, of course he would. I said years ago when Wilder was champion, and still undefeated. I said Usyk would kick his ass. I said that back then, years ago. My video's still up. Go on my channel and type in Alexander Usyk will destroy Deontay Wilder. I made a video with that exact title, and I explained why, and my opinion hasn't changed. Best American heavyweight right now, Jarrell Miller. Jarrell Miller sucks, but I don't know. I don't know who the best heavyweight is right now in America. There's not really any good ones, is there? They all suck ass, all of them. They all suck. Yeah, Joshua was in the passenger seat, so he wasn't driving. Jake Paul right now versus Danny Williams would be a toss-up. My money would be on Danny Williams if I knew it was a real fight, even if he's in his mid-50s. Wilder doesn't deserve this shot at all. Caballero, Parker, Wardley all deserve it far more. Yeah, but I don't think... I think Usyk has earned kind of a soft defense. I don't think he's obligated to fight anybody. So, I mean, what's he going to do? Fight Gassiev again? Like, again, all those guys, Wardley, Parker, Caballero, I'd love to see them fight Usyk. They're all deserving of it, but I can see the argument for Usyk getting a soft defense. And Wilder, at very least, he is a name, so why not? Why not, eh? No, I didn't watch that either. I know a lot of people thought that that Pitbull Cruz should have won it, though, did they not? At least that's what I saw. Like, the people I interact with all seem to think that Pitbull Cruz was a deserved winner, you know? I like the Ring Magazine channel, but Max Kellerman gets on my nerves. Well, I only watch it for the fights. I don't watch any of their interviews or any of their gay shit. I just watch the fights, and that's it. Dmitry Bivol is a coward. Beterbiev gave him a rematch immediately, but Bivol's trying to wait as long as possible to age Beterbiev out even more. Well, you know, that's what Beterbiev gets for being a man and giving him the rematch. Beterbiev should have just took the first win and run with it, and then moved up to cruiserweight or whatever. But no, he decided to be honourable and give him the rematch. Seeing how you work as a dome, I bet Christmas wasn't so jolly with the piss head. You've got no idea, mate. They're animalistic enough when sober at Christmas, dangerous when bladdered. Mate, do you know, I wasn't even going to bring this up. I mean this 100% wholeheartedly. I wasn't going to bring it up. I actually don't want to talk about work. I don't want to talk about it because it has been so stressful over this past month, the shit I've had to deal with at work and the situations I've been in, that I actually don't know where to start. Like, if I was to sit and like I could sit here and tell you stories, like individual stories about individual shifts, but it's so bizarre that like I don't even know where to start. But put it this way, it's gotten so bad that I'm in a bit of legal trouble. I've been barred from working in a couple of venues actually because of altercations I've had with people. I've been assaulted, I don't know how many times. I've been threatened, I don't know how many times. And it's actually gotten to the point where someone will threaten me, assault me. I will then defend myself. And then that person will play the victim and accuse me of assault. I'm not even joking. And I've got some videos too. Because the past week on the job, the past 3 shifts more specifically, I've been wearing a body camera. So I've got some interesting footage, but obviously for legal reasons, I'm not going to show them publicly. But yeah, I'm in a bit of bother with my work at the moment because there's a bit of contention as to whether or not I'm allowed to wear my own body camera. See, the reason I started doing it, in fact, I'll show you, right? 1 second. Let me put the camera on. Yeah, I'm still wearing Christmas jammies. I bought this. So I got this, right? Clip it to my chest. See, when I've got that, people are a lot less likely to assault me. It's actually acted as a great deterrent. I've actually had guys come right up to me, about to put their hands in my face, you know, like they do. You know, where people put their finger in your face and try to like intimidate you and shit, and I'm gonna slit your throat, blah blah blah. I've actually had people come right up to me. They've seen that I'm wearing a body camera, and then they stop. So it's acted as a really good deterrent for it. It's really protected me on my job. It's helped me in the past week or so. Again, I've wore it my past 3 shifts, and I'm being told by higher ups that I'm not allowed to wear one unless it's provided by the venue. But what doesn't make sense about that is most of the venues I work don't provide a body cam. So how am I supposed to protect myself legally? And I've needed to do it for legal reasons because again I've given several statements to the police over the past month. Like since I did my last live, the amount of time I've had to speak to the police, the amount of time I've been accused of assault, and the altercations I've been in, it's gotten really bad, and again, it's stressed me out lately, so I wasn't even gonna bring it up, if truth be told. Yeah, it's, December is absolutely insane when you do this job. Yeah, don't stress it, mate, family time is more important than the usual. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Like, that's the thing, like, making videos has obviously been the last thing on my mind with everything that's going on, and again, when you're sometimes when you do that kinda job and you're in that sort of mindset, I could say things publicly, like on a live stream or in a video. I could say things publicly in the heat of the moment that could get me in serious trouble legally. I could give a little bit too much away, or I could put certain people on blast, and it's just not going to be because again, I've got body cam footage that I could upload body cam footage. Right, I could do it right now, and I could embarrass a whole bunch of people, but legally, that'll get me in a lot of hot water. It'll get me in a lot of trouble because there's a couple of things that are gonna end up in court. There's, again, this it's just not the way things are done in this business, you know? You gotta be very professional with the way you deal with things, you know? How's it going, Lucas? Good to see you. Ike Ibeabuchi got his 21st victory in 16th stoppage against Idris Safini in 2025. You know, I forgot all about that. Yeah, I forgot he was fighting. Suffered his first defeat of his career in his next fight in December 22nd. Ah, interesting. So he ended up losing as well. I didn't even realize that. And I knew he was making a comeback. He was scheduled to fight. I didn't realize he was. I didn't realize he actually that it actually happened. I must have just missed it. I'll check it out though. I was looking forward to I was looking for Ward to fight him. I was looking forward to him fighting someone now if Joshua is injured. Yeah. They might have Ike Ibeabuchi versus Oliver McCoy. That would make sense. I mean, both old guys who are still active, innit? So why not? Guys in their 50s, let them box. I mean, at least it would be evenly matched due to both guys being, like, equally shot, you know? Even with Joshua carrying Jake, he was utterly gassed round 5, just sad having to wait. Well, he probably didn't even train because, again, it's a YouTuber and it's an exhibition, so he probably didn't even train for it, if truth be told, you know? McCall keeps fight even though he's around yeah, yeah. McCall just will never stop fighting until he's in the grave, man. Until he's, like, strapped down, put in a straitjacket, and forced not to box anymore. Then he won't stop boxing. He's obsessed with it. He's addicted to it, and he probably needs the money, you know? Churchill was so conservative that he sided with the evil far left communists in Russia instead of Germany, yeah. But now the Churchill ilks of today want us to die over in Russia. They want us to go to nuclear war with Russia so we all die, for the chosen people, whoever those chosen people are in this day and age, because it changes from time to time, you know? They were gonna have Ibeabuchi versus Williams. Yeah, yeah. Again, that's another one that would make sense. Just put the old guys in with each other instead of having them get, like, knocked about by prospects. Guys in their 20s. Put them in with each other. Fury AJ isn't happening again. Yeah, doesn't seem like that will happen anytime soon. Should have happened years ago. Do you think AJ stayed? Well, apparently people died. So again, the first I've heard about it is here on this live. So I've not had time to look into it. Yeah, Pitbull Cruz, because he got robbed against Tank Davis already, didn't he? So yeah, that's a shame. So did Lamont Roach. To be fair, both of them got both Roach and Pitbull got robbed in those fights. Yeah, yeah. Beating Cachnello made Bivol. It gave Bivol this aura of, like, an unbeatable, like pound for pound legend, which he never was. Bivol's a good fighter. He's not an elite fighter, in my opinion. He never was. Yeah, the Bivol Beterbiev thing gets brought up. Yeah, so it's just a popular topic right now, so it's gonna get brought up. It's just what happens, you know. All American heavyweight suck, and our future is in the hands of Jared Anderson. Yeah, yeah. When Jared Anderson is one of the prospects, you know that it's screwed. You know. Yeah, you certainly don't have any you don't have any Seth Mitchells or Wilders left, do you? Ike Ibeabuchi has a strange mythology surrounding him. So many people think he would have dominated the heavyweight division. While he was good, he wasn't as good as people think. No, he wouldn't have dominated. He wouldn't have beaten Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis was a different level. He wouldn't have beaten the Klitschko's. He would have been a decent fringe contender at best, but he wouldn't have beaten any of the top guys. You know, start at the end and work my way back. I don't even remember where the end or the start is. That's how crazy it's been. Again, I've been assaulted. I don't know how many times within the past like month and a half. It's crazy, man. And again, I've been criminalized. Again, like I said earlier, I've actually been barred from working a couple of venues because apparently I'm a violent, like rude individual because I'll push somebody away from me after they tell me they're gonna slit my throat and then they put their hands on me. So when that person gets sorted out, it's I'm being violent and rude apparently, according to these mostly because the person I'm sorting out is a criminal and the people on his payroll want you to turn a blind eye to his crimes. I've already said too much. Alcohol plus the Scottish is a recipe. What does that? Yeah, yeah. I mean, the Scottish are bad enough at the best of times. Add alcohol into the mix, and you just get zombies, mate. You get absolute maniacs. That's what happens, man. And I've gotten to the point I'm absolutely sick to death of alcoholics. I'm sick to death of alcoholics. I've got absolutely no sympathy for them anymore. I've got no more sympathy for the homeless. I'll tell you that, right? And I'll get into that some other time. I've got no more sympathy for drug addicts, and I've got absolutely zero sympathy or respect for boomers. I've started to absolutely despise boomers. Everything about them. I do not like or respect or tolerate a single thing about that generation anymore. I don't. Slowly, I began to hate them. Lamont won round 4 to 10 easy. Should have got the nod. Yeah, I've not watched it. Yeah, yeah. When you're a Christian and when you have that aura, you see people just spaz out around you as if they're demon possessed. That's literally what it's like, mate. But the shocking thing about it is you're not allowed to defend yourself. And again, I'm not even allowed to have evidence. So again, if I'm working somewhere and I get assaulted, I get threatened a bunch of times and then I get physically assaulted, right? And I defend myself, even if there's CCTV in that place, I'm not allowed to see it. I'm not allowed a copy of it. I'm not allowed to present the case to the venue or to the police or whatever. But at the same time, I'm not allowed to have a body camera, apparently, to defend myself, to protect myself, even though just having the body camera, it's not just about gathering evidence. Just having it literally deters people from assaulting you because they don't want to assault you if they're on camera. More often than not, it scares them off. So like, when I'm not wearing it, somebody will put their face in my face, tell me they're gonna slit my throat, and then poke me in the chest. And then if I like push their arm away and say don't touch me, I get accused of assault. If I'm wearing a camera, that's not going to happen, is it? They might call me an asshole or whatever, or complain and shout at me, but they're not gonna come right into my face and tell me I'm gonna murder you, I'm gonna slit your throat, I'm gonna run you over when you finish tonight, or something, and then grab me and try to hit me, and then have me end up wrestling them to the ground or something. Like that's not gonna happen if I'm wearing a camera in most cases. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm still doing it. Like it's a point of contention between me and some of my employers. Like, but I'm still doing it. I'll fight my case till the end because I'm not having myself in the situations that I've been in the past month. It's not happening anymore. You know. Um, what are they putting in the famous grouse? Yeah, I don't know. Whatever they're doing, it's making people insane. I couldn't do your job, Nordic. I have too short of a temper. Yeah, you've got to have a real good temper to do the job. See if you don't. you'd never handle it mentally. Like if you're the type of person who gets easily offended or if you get easily angered, it's not gonna go well for you basically because you'll just end up in altercation after altercation. Like you've got to be so patient doing the job, and you've got to have a very little pride. You can't have an ego because again, it's so different. See if someone like shouts in your face or something or threatens your family and this that and the other. A person who's got a bit of an ego about them is going to be like, "Who are you talking to? Let's go around the corner," and things like that. Whereas somebody like myself, again, it's probably just being a Christian, you know, being humble. I can rise above it, and I can like not react to it. But it's when they start physically getting involved. That's when that's when you have no choice. Basically, if I have no other choice, I have to defend myself. I'm gonna do it. But defending yourself, unfortunately, when you do this job, comes with consequences. That's the problem. You know, that's why I want to make sure everything is documented, you know, so that I can't be accused of shit. How typical the people who are always trying to bully others around, they can feel superior, then go begging on their knees later to others because they've been bullied and bullied back and want to look good. Yeah. Yeah, bullies will start a fight, lose, and then play the victim. So if they can't win the fight, if they can't be the tough guy, they'll criminalize you, and they'll play a different hand. That's like their trump card essentially. They'll play a new hand and try and get you done legally or try and get you sacked or anything. And it's worked. It's worked on a couple of occasions. Yeah, yeah, I could do that, you know. I could, but again, it's like I'm concerned if I do that, it'll cause me a lot of IRL legal trouble because and again, I don't want to lose my license and things like that. That can happen. You got to be really careful with social media and what you put on it. You know, there's a reason why you don't see many security guys on social media. Got a book to recommend, Nordic. It's called The Unbeaten: Triumph and Tragedies of Rocky Marciano. Yeah, I'd like to check that out. That'd be interesting. Guys at a security company say you're not allowed to wear a body cam. Yeah, and that's what I've been told. But again, it's like some venues you work at give you a body camera, right? They provide it for the shift, but you don't have any like access to the footage. The footage goes onto a database. It's digital, basically, right? It's connected to the venue now, because I have, but most venues, that's the problem. Most venues don't have one, so you've got no way of defending yourself. You got to rely on like crappy, outdated CCTV that doesn't have any audio, right? So somebody could tell me that they're going to slit my throat and put their hands on me, and it might look on camera like I'm being aggressive and stuff, you know. But it's like if I've got my own like video and audio and audio evidence, they can't say that because it's right there. It captures everything, you know. And like I've noticed in my last like week of shifts, it's acted as a deterrent. Like I've not been assaulted in the past week because of it, but because it's right there. People know they can't get away with it, you know. Hope you had a nice Christmas. God bless you. Yeah, God bless you too, man. Yeah, I did have a good Christmas. Again, it was Christmas Eve was a bit awkward. I said I'd talk about that. I will later. But basically, Christmas Day was great. We just stayed in her mum's and had a nice turkey dinner, watched some movies and that. We watched Shrek the Halls. That was one of the things we watched. It was all right. Didn't mind it. Joshua only put about 20% into the final right hand and still flattened Jay. Yeah, he could have flattened him in 60 seconds if he wanted to. McCall retired back 2019, came back 2024, and yet he's still very old. No one can deck him. Yeah, he's a tough old brute, him, isn't he? Absolutely off his nut, like a proper hard man. Oliver McCall, crazy man. Watching one of Triple B's videos earlier, where he rinses Otto Wall. Yeah. His rivalry with Otto Walling, I must admit, is pretty funny. Like I always enjoy those. We all bleed the shame. Brilliant. AJ would have killed Paul if caught him with that Klitschko uppercut. Yeah, can you imagine? He just went in there, just threw them uppercuts. He would have taken him out in the first minute, probably. Russians aren't the real enemies. The real enemies with its own borders. Yeah, but we're going to send all the white people from this country, all the able-bodied white men, to go over to Russia and murder the Christians over in Russia and in turn get murdered, while over here all the weak soy boy beta males are running the country and flooding us with immigrants from the inside. That's what's going to happen. Does it remind you of anything? Does it remind you of anything that happened in the 1930s? And then, of course, the boomers came along, inherited it all, and spent 50 years getting drunk and high and whoring and selling off the family business to disinherit their children and leaving us all with the debt. Leaving the Gen Xers, the millennials, which is us, and the Zoomers, which are the ones below us, leaving us all to deal with the consequences of their actions while they all die of alcohol-induced brain damage and all that. What a what a great time to be alive, eh? It makes you patriotic, doesn't it, for your country, dying for the chosen people. It really does. Beevil was at 175 for years, getting tons of UD. Nobody cared for years before the cinnamon hype job. Yeah, yeah, and then he beat Canelo, and all of a sudden he's pound for pound, pound for pound. Crawford retired. Oh yeah, Crawford retired. But who even cares? Who cares about Crawford? He sucks. He's a bum. Another fraud career. My buddy at my boxing gym's from Scotland. Cool guy though. Oh yeah, nice one. Did you see the interview where Kovalev admitted his fight with Canelo wasn't real? I think I did. I've heard him low key admit it several times, like he knew he wasn't going to win and things like that. I've never heard him explicitly state it though, but I'd like to find it out. Yeah, God bless you, man. How you doing? Security companies in the UK need charges pressed against them. Yeah, because there's no duty of care, and again, a lot of them are gang affiliated. I'm itching to say more, but what I will say is this: I'll give you guys this. Whatever you do not work at a casino. Do not work at a casino, because see, if you do, you'll be explicitly told to turn a blind eye to a lot of things, and it will be extremely detrimental to your mental health. Put it that way. Speaking of gang affiliated, the title of the video implied that he wasn't saying Crawford Canelo fight wasn't real, but when you watch the interview, he's clearly talking about his fight with Canelo. All right, I see. Yeah, I don't know. Crawford's just boring, man. Maybe a fake camera could scare people. Yeah, I'd rather have a real one though, just in case. Again, I paid a lot of money for it. It's a good quality camera, and it picks up audio and visual in HD. So, and it's also got a night vision on it as well as a flashlight, so it's pretty good. I was actually filming this one time, and this junkie guy begged me to turn it off. He vomited right in front of me. I've got the footage of it still. He vomited right in front of me, and he begged me to turn the camera off because he was embarrassed. And it was I was thinking to myself, why doesn't he just leave? Why is he standing here? But he wanted to tell me his life story, and his big, junkies. They always tell you their sob story, how they became junkies, and how everybody judges me because I'm a junkie, and blah blah blah. And I'm not actually a junkie. I just have an eating disorder, blah blah. The bollocks that they tell you. And yeah, he wanted me to turn the camera off, so I did. Just, but if he'd started getting aggressive and that, I would have kept it on and just been like, nah. Because if you're going to assault me, I want it on camera. Can you touch on the Boomer family dynasty? All right then. Basically, what happened is I've got. They weren't actually my relatives. They were my partner's relatives, right? So basically, they invited us to go for a meal, but it was a bit weird because they didn't actually ask us. They just booked the meal because again, this is what boomers do, right? Boomers expect you to drop everything you're doing. They expect you to just completely disregard your own life and your own time and your own interests and your own situation to just bend to their whims. So basically, they invited us to come along. There was four or five of them or whatever, like relatives, and three of them were boomers, right? And they wanted us to come along with them to have a Christmas Eve meal in this lovely restaurant. It was this fancy steakhouse in the city, really nice place. I'd never been there, but my missus had been there before, and it was a great time, right? So we show up to the restaurant, right? And well, no, they showed up 45 minutes early, despite the fact it was booked in at a particular time, right? It was booked in like 6 o'clock or whatever, and they showed up at like quarter past five, right? So they were like 45 minutes early, and they just demanded to be seated. And then they phone us from the restaurant. Luckily, we weren't far away because we were going somewhere else nearby first. And they were like, "Can you get here as soon as possible?" Even even though they'd asked us to be there by 6, which is when it was booked. So we're like, "Okay, fine, whatever." So we got there early, we joined them. They bring out the starters, and basically everything's fine, right? The food was lovely, service we were being served by by this lady, right? She looked like she was in her mid-20s or something. Nice girl, she didn't really do anything wrong. But for whatever reason, the boomers were annoyed, and they were starting to get really angry about something, and I couldn't tell what it was. Apparently, what they were angry about was that she served us last, and bear in mind we were there like 45 minutes early, so there were other people in. The place was quite busy. That they were there on time. It's one of them places you've got to book, right? So they were being served before us, and basically they were pissed off about that, right? They were like, "Why are they walking past us and serving them?" And I'm like, I'm trying to say to them, "Well, again, they're just doing their job. We're early. They've not done anything wrong." So then this other girl comes over, this other waitress, and she looked about 18, 19, really young girl, probably works there, is probably being forced to work there on Christmas Eve. Probably gets paid peanuts. She's probably on minimum wage, right? So she's obviously not like she's obviously not in a great situation, right? She came over to collect the glasses off the table. She wasn't even serving us. She wasn't even our waitress, right? But she came over to collect the glasses off the table. And the boomers start bitching and moaning at her. They make some sly comments, and she was like, "What was that, guys?" Like because she didn't hear what they said, or she wanted them to clarify what they said. And then they start going, you did, I can't remember what it was they said exactly, but they started like being proper rude and proper cheeky. Is that how you treat your customer? Typical like snarky boomer shit. Or like, oh, you walked right past us and didn't ask us if we want anything, or you waited until all this time to come and get our glasses, or you didn't offer us a refill. Like it was something like that. They were bitching and moaning about this girl, and she looked a bit upset, and I was, like, so embarrassed. I was trying not to look at anybody, and my girl right next to me, she was embarrassed too. Like, she was trying to hide her face because 'cause they're her relatives. But then I felt this, like, swell of pity run through me, and I said to the waitress, I was like, "Excuse me," I was like, "I'm really sorry about that. I don't think you did anything wrong." And then they turned to me, and it was that real awkward situation. Do you know where, like, you don't know each other that well, but you try not to embarrass each other, and they looked at me, like, just raging, like, pure anger because I wasn't joining in and ganging up on this young girl, this servant, this waitress, right? And because I was telling her, "You did nothing wrong. I'm sorry about this." And they just got so angry at me, and she went away with the glasses, and they was trying to justify to me. They said she judged us, she prejudged us, she thinks we're scum and all that. Like that's what they were saying. She thinks we're scum, and I'm like, what are you guys even talking about? She didn't even do anything. It was like again, I'm trying to like play it off with humor, and I'm like, hey, listen, if she poisons anybody, because the main course hadn't even come yet. We just had the starters and a drink, right? So I was like, if she poisons anybody, she's gonna poison you guys. She's not gonna poison me. And I jokingly went, see if you're gonna start harassing the staff, do it after you've had your food, not before. So I was saying things like that, like just jokingly, but kind of trying to lighten the tone because I could see they were pissed off and like proper like looking down their nose at me, like who is this prick? Like they really didn't like me. Like they'd only met me about 3 or 4 times before this through my missus. Obviously, they're her relatives, but they were so angry, and I could tell from that moment it was going to be like a lifelong feud. A few minutes later, I saw that the waitress chick, the young girl, didn't come back in, and I looked over to the bar, and I could see her there, and I could see she looked really upset, and she didn't want to come out. So I think she was letting the other girl she was working with come out instead. So I went up, as if I was gonna go to the bathroom, but instead I went up to the girl and spoke to her, and I gave her a fiver. I gave her a tip. I was like, "Listen, I'm really sorry about that." And she looked like she was about to cry, like she was really sad, and she was like, "Did I do something wrong? Like, I'm really sorry if I did something wrong." And I was like, "No, no, you did nothing wrong. You did nothing wrong at all. They're just very, very moany people. Don't worry about it." And then she asked me, "Was the service good?" And bear in mind, she wasn't even serving us. She just went over to get the glass. And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, the service was great. You done a good job. Don't worry about it." So I went back to the table, and I just know while I was away, they was talking shit about me at the table, and it's gonna start like a lifelong family feud. But basically, we finished the meal, and we were there for like another half hour, and the rest of the night was just so awkward. It was cringy. It was. But again, that's boomer shit. Like they go to a restaurant, and that's one of the things I've noticed about boomers. And there's like whole Reddit pages about this. There's whole Reddit pages talking about the way that boomers behave in restaurants, right? And how they treat the staff like absolute shit, right? They treat them like absolute dirt. Staff that are like, a quarter of their age, probably earning minimum wage, probably being forced to work Christmas Eve against their will. They just can't afford not to. And then you've got these like quite wealthy boomers who are in a much like more beneficial situation, just talking shit to you. And it was weird because one of the boomers I mentioned one of them wasn't a boomer, right? One of the people we were with, it was actually one of their sons, right? And he's about my age, maybe a few years older, so it's her cousin, and he was joining in with them and ganging up on this waitress and like say, oh, she thinks we're scum, this, that, and the other, and she did that on purpose and shit. And I'm like, I had to like check them all. I'm like, where is all this coming from? Why are you just why would you go for a meal, like invite people to go for dinner, and then just ruin the whole vibe, ruin the whole atmosphere by starting a big argument and giving aggro to the staff? It just doesn't make any sense, man. But it actually really it upset me and it pissed me off and it infuriated me, and I could see it ruined that girl's evening. Like again, she's working Christmas Eve, probably for minimum wage, and they upset her. She was nearly in tears, and it honestly pissed me off. It really did. And it's put a lot about boomers and their lack of empathy into perspective for me. Again, boomers expect everybody to worship the ground they walk on. When they go into a restaurant, they expect you to put rose petals down and literally like kiss their feet as they walk. They expect you to serve them before everybody else, even when they show up when they're not supposed to. It's like, and they expect to get a pensioner's discount while they sit there and talk shit to you and insult you and humiliate you and embarrass you and demean you and demoralize you in front of your colleagues and your family and things like that. They expect you to just deal with that and not react to it. Again, it's the kind of shit I have to deal with on my job, except I'm used to it. Okay, I'm a guy, I can deal with aggro. But when you're a young girl working for minimum wage, probably can't afford to pay your rent and stuff, you don't expect to get that kind of abuse while you're at work. So I had to get involved. I had no chance. I mean, I had no choice. Even if, regardless of the aggro it causes me, with family. Leonard easily. Nick Fuentes is telling white people not to get married and have kids, but somehow people can't see that he's a plant. Yeah, but again, you can't be a master deceiver without providing nuggets of truth. Nick Fuentes says a lot of things that are true. He does. He makes sense a lot of the time, but at the same time, he's also pushing unbiblical and unpractical behaviors. Okay, he's capitalizing on the doomer chud mentality by convincing people not to procreate, which is not good for our society. Wanted to bet on Haney to beat Brian Norman, but the site wouldn't let me because of my age. All right, you were too young to bet. That's annoying. Yeah, yeah. Gambling, you need age verification for it. Yeah, he did. He did block him. Let the immigrants go and fight Russia. Guaranteed they'd rather return to their homelands than fight Russia for the UK. Yeah, send them all to Russia. Send them all on the front lines. Send every Somalian pirate to Russia to fight for the chosen people. Why not? By the way, see once you get truly red pilled, you realize the chosen people is everyone but you. The chosen people isn't blacks. The chosen people isn't Jews. The chosen people isn't Mexicans. It isn't Muslims. It isn't Indians. No, the chosen people is everybody but the people of God, right? The children of God, right? The followers of Christ. It's everybody but us, you know? Yeah, you forgot to say about I Could Be a Butchie. That's fine. When I was watching Christmas specials, I realized how no media makes it about Jesus. It's all about Santa. Here's how they teach kids to have faith in Santa, but not Jesus. Yeah. Again, there's scores of kids out there that believe in Santa but don't believe in Jesus. How messed up is that? Even though Jesus Christ is verifiable history. Okay. Like anyone that denies the existence of Jesus Christ is a moron and who's historically illiterate, you know? Most allegations against Germany at Nuremberg were made by the Soviet because they took Polish territory, German side. Yeah, because the Soviets infiltrated the entire of the West's infrastructure, even back then. So we should never have been at war with Germany, you know? The Germans were not our enemies. They should have been our allies. Probably Wardley, actually, because I think he's tougher. Dubois a bigger puncher and a better boxer, but Wardley's so much tougher. He's got more stamina, more heart. I think he'd win at this point. Stalin falsely accused Germans of the Katyn Forest massacre when the Russians actually killed those Poles. Yeah, absolutely. That's true. So I've heard anyway. Yeah, I'm convinced most of the war crime Germany was accused of were committed by the Soviets. But as you know, history is written by the victors. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Look, Nazi Germany lost the war, right? So does it surprise anybody that they're the bad guys? Like, if they won the war, would they be depicted as these evil, like irredeemable demons? No, they would be depicted as the heroes, kind of like Winston Churchill, right? He's the hero that history remembers, despite the fact he was an alcoholic, brain dead retard and a warmonger. You know, I forgot to say Ike Ibeabuchi lost before he tried to call out Usyk, the best in the world. Yeah, he did want to fight Usyk. That would never have happened, though. He'd have never have fought Usyk. He was too old. Usyk wouldn't have taken that fight. It was just very unrealistic, you know. Crawford got undisputed against Indongo, who's currently 24-10. His career is a joke. Yeah, Crawford was entirely manufactured, and he won't even be remembered. Like, there'll be all the AI videos on YouTube, like Terence Crawford retired undefeated, and he beat everybody, and blah blah blah. And how good was he actually? The skill and the counterpunch, you know, with the AI like text to speech engine voices and the like weird facial expressions in the videos like that. You'll have to endure those videos for generations to come, but no actual fans give a crap about Crawford because he was a boring fraud, you know. Like an easily debunked war crime that Germany was accused of is burning down villages and farms. Stalin introduced a scorched earth policy so the Germans can't use any supplies they might find. Yeah, I mean that's a classic old school war tactic, that, isn't it? You know, so they can't pillage anything, you know. I can't go into detail, but if you look up Kodo forums, it's a complete scam. False accusations by Soviets. Yeah. Yeah. Triple G would knock out Crawford. Even now, in a real fight. I can't stand it when people think they're mate, like I said, boomers think that everybody needs to worship the ground they walk on because they're boomers. They expect a pensioner discount despite the fact they are statistically the wealthiest people on the planet because they pillaged and inherited everything and then sold out the family business, sold out their land to disinherit and disenfranchise their kids so that they could retire while we pay for their pensions by paying an insane amount of income tax. You know, where do you think that tax is going? It's paying for boomers and their retirements, you know, their state funded pensions. While they tell us we don't want to work, you know, but boomers could afford a house. You know, they could spend 35 grand on a house, on a one house income, you know, budget. Basically, you know, they could buy I know boomers that bought a 5-bedroom house back in the 70s and 80s, and were able to do that on a one home income. Some of them on minimum wage as well. I'm not even joking. Yeah, nowadays you have to work about, let's say doing my job, right? I make about what, £12 21 an hour, give or take. Like some places make a little bit more. I would literally have to work 60 hours every single week just to be able to afford rent. I'm not even joking. I would. If I wanted to actually buy a house one day, I'd probably have to work so many hours that it would be considered illegal, and I wouldn't even be allowed to do it. I'm talking 100-hour weeks or something like that, where I would get taxed through the ass, so I wouldn't even be making any money anyway, by comparison to what I'm already making. Not anything significant anyway. Um, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm very careful with my money. I've got 5 saving accounts, and I don't spend like crazy. I'm saving up at the moment, but I have to scrimp and save every penny to have any chance of one day even being able to rent a house. Forget ever buying one. It's just completely unrealistic. But boomers will tell you to pull yourself up by your shoestraps, or by your bootstraps, and just work harder. Just work harder. Stay with the company or get a better job. And or, in their day, you literally didn't need experience to get a job. You could just walk into a business and say, "Got any jobs going?" And they could give you one and provide training and everything. Nowadays, you got to have 2 years experience to even do a job. But how do you get 2 years experience in a job if you need the experience to get the job? Not possible. It's literally not possible. So you wonder why there's like 19-year-olds now who sit around playing video games all day and don't want to work. Well, why is that? Because the boomers sold the family business, right? Their Gen X parents probably work in an office in some shithead corporation. Again, probably work 60 hours a week. So they don't even have time to raise their own kids. uh, Kid was raised by the state, raised by the TV, because the mother was forced into the workforce so that corporations could double their workforce, as well as being able to depress wages because of all the illegal immigration. All of that was caused by boomers. Boomers caused it all. They benefited from the immigration initially, right? Because they benefited from cheap labor. They benefited from women being in the workforce. All of it was to benefit them. They already had the good old fashioned 1950s post war conservative upbringing. They already had all the stability they needed, but they never had any hardships. And that's why sometimes suffering, a little bit of suffering, is a good thing. And again, the Bible talks about this, right? A little bit of hardships, a little bit of suffering brings strength, right? Struggle is nature's way of strengthening, as the old nature says. The boomers never had to struggle. They never struggled at any point during their life. They never wanted for anything. Okay, again, they could have a one house income. They could have a one household income, a 5 bedroom house with as many kids as they want. They can have as many cars as they want. They can have a boat. They can own their own property. They can own multiple properties and charge an extortionate amount for rent, right? Screwing over the housing market. They can disinherit their own children and tell them, you can work for your wealth like I did, even though they literally inherited wealth from the pre-World War One generation, who actually worked their ass off to get what they had, right? So again, boomers are literally, and not only that, if you look at the culture that was introduced by boomers, it was essentially atheism, right? When communism and atheism took over society, that was in the boomers' day, right? So that's when you had weed smoking and alcoholism, and an entire generation ended up with essentially brain damage, right? An entire generation ended up as junkies and alkies and stuff. And that's essentially why they renounced God, because when you renounce God, you become lovers of self rather than lovers of God. And that was why these people don't have any empathy. That's why they screwed over their own children and grandchildren and great grandchildren. That's why my generation is seeing all this economic hardship. That's why we had the credit crunch in 2008, the recession. It was all caused by boomers and their selfishness. They sold us all out so that they could live a comfortable and debaucherous retirement. But they screwed themselves over in the process, because they're all alcoholic losers who are probably going to hell because they've spent their entire life whoring and sinning, and again, disinheriting and selling out your own flesh and blood for profit, which as far as I'm concerned is satanic, right? Gen X were the first generation in any still living lifetime that had things worse off than their parents, right? Because the boomers had everything great. They wanted to keep that greatness going and continue to hoard everything for themselves. And they were perfectly willing to sacrifice their children and future generations for their own sin, for their own ego. So basically, essentially, they're just another aspect of paganism, right? They're worshippers of Moloch. It's all about child sacrifice, right? When you remove God, child sacrifice in many forms becomes the norm. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but that's my layman's way of describing the situation. My personal opinion, it's one of the reasons they murdered Charlie Kirk. Look what he said about boomers just 6 weeks before he died. Go and look that up. Idiots on Reddit say Crawford beats Prime Roy. Well, of course, it's Reddit. You're not going to get anything but idiocy on Reddit, are you? You know? Santa is like the Easter Bunny, a Jew anagram for capitalism and pissing away money in expensive shit. That's what I hate about Christmas as well. I hate how it went from Christ our Savior was born on Christmas Day to let's buy a whole bunch of expensive presents to outdo each other. And that's another thing about that dinner that I forgot to mention. So the boomers at that dinner bought each other presents, right? They were like giving each other like gold bars, and because some of them are quite wealthy, right? They're giving each other like gold bars and shit, and giving each other like all these like, they've got the presents in a Marks and Spencer bag, even though they didn't even buy them from Marks and Spencer. They were just showing off, right? And basically, it's a massive like ego trip. It's narcissism. Look at how much I spent on your gift compared to how much you spent on my gift. There was no sincerity anywhere in any of the gifts that were given. And I was just sitting there. I didn't get nobody a gift at the table, and I was glad because I don't really care what they think of me. And I kind of wish I didn't even go, if truth be told. But that's what it was. It was like pageantry. And you see people at Christmas, they're all about buying the latest thing and buying their family members love with money, and with gifts. And again, it's all about like extreme corporate capitalism and consumerism, and not about what it's supposed to be, and that's worshiping our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and celebrating his birth, him becoming the light in the darkness. The Christmas tree used to represent, because they used to put candles on a tree. Obviously that's dangerous, so the tradition changed from just hanging up electric lights, right? But it used to represent the light of Christ coming to save us from the darkness, right? That's what the Christmas tree used to represent. Nowadays, what does it resemble? What does Christmas resemble now? Absolutely nothing like its origins, So it just resembles paganism. It resembles its actual pagan origins and not its Christian origins, which is what it should represent, It's sad. Yeah, strange that Yuriorkis Gamboa can hurt Crawford, but Canelo can't. But again, when you get these industry plants, they are essentially like they defy the laws of physics with situations like that. The Scottish independence movement is a bunch of retarded alcoholic boomers who watched Braveheart and thought it was real history, basically. And they see the English as their enemies. They're like, up the English and all that. But they absolutely have they have no problem with Muhammad coming over and spreading his influence. He's just as Scottish as us, but the English are they're our enemies, basically. Just it's stupid shit. It's alcoholic boomer retardation. That's what Scottish independence is. It's nonsense. The union is sacred. Okay, our sacred union, one nation under God, that's where that comes from, needs to be protected at all costs. Yeah, when the boomers are gone, the world might start healing. When the boomers are all dead, and hopefully their influence is dead with them, maybe my generation, the millennials, the most intelligent generation, and I'm assuming most of my audience, our based, edgy, like radicalized right-wing generation, a generation of realists. We've broken free from the liberal boomer illusion, and we've decided to live in reality. We realize that Lord Farquaad and Darth Vader are not villains; they're actually the good guys. We realize that. We realize that Marxism, as they call it, is actually a good thing, and racism, that was a gaslighting tactic used by drugged up, retard, alcoholic hippies, and we're no longer going to let them gaslight us and steal our inheritance, sell us out, and replace us and cause us to die for the chosen people. We're not going to let that happen. We're a generation that's broken free from decades of drugs and alcohol and propaganda and Marxist induced insanity and delusion. We've broken free from it. We're better than them. We were always better than them. Okay, when I was a child, I was more intelligent than the average boomer. I was, you know. Well, let me tell you something. The first time I ever tried weed, do you know what I said to myself? I thought, wow, that's disgusting. I'm never doing that again. Because I felt it go right to my brain, and I thought to myself, you know what, that'll kill me. That'd give me brain damage. I was smart enough to realize that as like a 16-year-old, whereas your average like 50-something-year-old boomer still smokes weed and goes on schizo episodes because it's messed up their brain and made them go completely crazy. Your average boomer can't get through the day without having 17 pints. They can't go through the day without being medicated and intoxicated just to cure them of just their worthless existence. Because they're atheists, they don't have God in their life. They live for nothing. They live for absolutely nothing. They achieve absolutely nothing. They have all the money and material wealth they could ever want, but they're miserable. And that's why they're all alcoholic, drugged up retards, every one of them. So when that generation goes, hopefully we can take over and we can make things better. And hopefully we can instill a system where we never end up with weak men ever again. But back to the comments. I remember when I worked at some restaurant, I saw a phone at a table alone with no one there, so I put it in the lost and found. Then a guy got back. I guess it was his phone, and he got pissed. I put his phone in the lost and found. He accused me of stealing it. Borderline was about to get pissed. Mate, I've had that situation at my work. So I started. I think I talked about this before, but I started a new policy at my work. But basically, everywhere I go, because there was a bar that I've not actually worked at this bar in about 2 months. But basically, this bar I was working at, it was a Wetherspoons actually. They would take people's phones to charge them behind the bar. So this guy went up to one of the bar staff and he asked, "Can I charge my phone behind the bar?" And they took it and they charged it for him. And then when he was ready to leave, he's like, "Can I get my phone back?" And they gave him it and he left. This guy went away to another venue, got coked out of his mind, like came back to the bar absolutely steaming, off his face on drugs, lost his phone, and then accused the bar staff of stealing his phone and threatened to stab him in the throat. And I ended up having to restrain the guy, and it was a big massive load of chaos. I think I told that story before. But basically from that point on, I tell bar staff, see if someone offers you their phone to charge it for them or to watch it for them, say no, don't take it. So whenever customers ask me, "Can I charge my phone?" I say no. Nope, don't do that here. Sorry. Because again, they'll blame you if anything happens to it, even if it's not your fault. That's what junkies do. Yeah, you don't hate boomers enough, man. You don't. Yeah, I would be baffled too. How utterly typical. They organized everything and just as expected, and just expected you to go along with it when you barely know them. Yeah, that's what they did, just to keep up a good image, so they look like the perfect family on TV. Yeah, they did. They barely know us. I've met them like 4 or 5 times in my life, and she sees them more often than I do, but not very often, right? She doesn't really like them, right? They don't really get along, right? They expected us to know exactly when they were going to show up, despite the fact they told us that it was going to be 45 minutes after, because that was when they booked it for. They just showed up early just because they felt like it, and expected to get served before everyone else. They expected to get like waited on before every other customer who was there, like minding their business and probably there when they were booked. They expected us to just know when they were going to be there and be there too, so they didn't have to wait for us. And then they expected me to sit there quietly while they're bullying a waitress, bullying a young girl who did absolutely nothing wrong, literally just bullying her, picking on her for absolutely nothing. And I'm supposed to, and then getting mad at me because I spoke up for her and apologized on their behalf. That's boomers, man. That's a narcissistic, like manipulative boomer family. That's what that is. Yeah, many non-believers all believe in a man named Jesus Christ because a man named Jesus Christ did exist and it's verified history, as well as the crucifixion of resurrection. The crucifixion and resurrection is verified history. Archaeology proves it. I spoke to some Swedish guy. He was telling me how Soviets liberated Poland, not conquered, and the British media told no lies about World War One, as well and all this propaganda. Yeah. There's so many lies about World War One. It's a deep, deep rabbit hole to get into, and a dangerous one too. Yeah, Crawford will end up like Andre Ward, completely forgotten within a few years of retirement. Yeah, that's what happens with industry plants, because look, you can't fake popularity. You can try, but it won't work. That's just how it is. From what I remember, when I really got started to get into boxing, I never even heard of Crawford. He's not popular, was never a big star. No, he never was. Even that Madrimov fight, without all the crazy amount of hype that was pumped into it, no one really cared about it. They knew the only way to get a big fight out of Crawford was to put him in with Canelo. And without that, he would have been absolutely just inconsequential as far as boxing history. Guys, like my new cup. It's a Bullseye. You remember the TV show Bullseye? It's a cup of that. I got that for Christmas. Mrs. got me that for Christmas. Any thoughts on Imanga getting dropped and taking his first loss to Goss? I don't know who that is. Sorry. So right on boomers. 2 years' wages 2 years' wages, and they can buy a house for 35 grand with 5 bedrooms. By the way, like I'm not even making that up. I've heard of boomers. I've heard boomers talk about this. Few years of work and they buy a house with 5 bedrooms for 35 grand and raise a family of like 8 on it, while the wife can stay at home, be a trad wife, because back then women understood their role in society. They weren't forced into the workforce yet and gaslit with feminism, so they understood. There wasn't this like mass autism in society where guys and girls couldn't even talk to each other without being all awkward and stuff. That didn't exist in those days, so relationships were perfectly normal and natural. Again, you didn't have to go into like thousands and thousands of dollars of student loan debt to get a degree, to get a job flipping burgers. Like I'll tell you something else. Like I know people, right? People from my generation, relatives of mine actually, who spent years going to university, right, trying to get a degree, and ended up thousands of pounds in debt, and now work full time at McDonald's. I'm not even joking when I say that. Like, I know people who literally got a university degree and spent thousands for it, got themselves in debt, and is now absolutely broke and is working at McDonald's. Like, that actually happens. That's how my generation was gaslit. We were told when we were really young by the boomers, you got to go to university. You got to take out a loan, and you got to go to college, and you got to go to university, and you got to spend 4 years at uni, and to fund your way through uni, because we won't help you, because you've got to earn it yourself the way we did, even though we inherited our wealth by inheriting a very, very economically thriving society, right? You can do what we didn't do, and work your way through it. Take out a loan, get a side job, get yourself a part-time job at some scumbag corporation like McDonald's or whatever, or Amazon or whatever, to fund your living quarters while you're in college, and basically spend 4 years getting your degree. Get your degree, And then once you've got your degree, you'll get an amazing job, you'll have an amazing relationship, you'll have kids, you'll have a house, you'll be living the American dream, right? The Western dream. You'll make your fortune. You'll have all sorts of you'll start your own empire. All that stuff will happen. You just need to go to college. I know you're in debt now. I know you're working um, part time while studying, and you've barely got any time to sleep. But the way you deal with that is when you've got some spare time, spend it drinking and having casual sex and going to the club and getting drugged up, because that'll help you take the edge off and deal with the fatigue and the depression of working at McDonald's while studying for a degree. And then once you get the degree, it won't be totally useless. You won't still be working at McDonald's. No, when you get the degree, you're gonna be like Elon Musk, right? You're going to be the next Steve Jobs or whatever. You're going to be a billionaire, right? You're going to have everything you ever want. But no, that's not how it works, is it? Because what happens is you get the degree, you find out that the degree is absolutely worthless because the job you were working for didn't exist. All right. Your gender studies degree or your media studies degree or whatever it was that you spent 4 years of your life studying for and thousands of dollars got you absolutely nothing. And even if you had something useful like economics or medicine, they don't actually teach you economics. No, instead they taught you Black Lives Matter and you know how to be a homo. They taught you that instead of teaching you economics. So your degree is completely useless because the vast majority of jobs don't require a degree. And the ones that do, like being a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, are so saturated and very, very specific that chances are you're never even gonna make it anyway. So what's the point? Just you've worked at McDonald's, right? You worked at McDonald's part-time while you were studying for your degree. So you know what? Go and work at McDonald's and spend the rest of your life working there. Work 60 hours a week and become a functioning alcoholic, and then slit your wrists by the age of 40 because you're a complete failure in life, while your boomer grandparents live off of your tax money. Essentially, that's literally that's the state of society. That's the state my generation is in because of boomers. And I know I might not be the most articulate person to explain the situation, but that's how we were lied to. And that's why I'm glad I never listened. I'm glad I never went to university. I'm glad I never tried to get a degree. Like I did go to college briefly and then I dropped out like a month later when I realized it was a complete waste of time. I dropped out and I just got a job. And I literally I earn more money right now. Well, I've got more money in the bank right now working a shitty security job than the vast majority of my relatives who have university degrees. I'm not even kidding. That's how crazy it is. University, like this again, Charlie Kirk wrote a whole book about this, and it's one of the great awakenings that he led to, in my opinion. And it's part of the reason the elite did him in, right? That's why they had to get rid of him because he woke so many people up to the scam that was higher education, and he woke so many people up to boomer narcissism and just their negative influence on society. Part of the reason people talk about boomers was because of him and because of the things that he highlighted. Literally a godless generation, a generation of heathens that passed that heathen behavior onto their descendants. All right, where was I? Yep, they had it easier than they literally had it easier than any generation. Like the pre-World War One generation had things difficult. They had a genuine depression to deal with, right? They had a lot of economic hardships to deal with. The boomers had no problems whatsoever. Their generation was literally a paradise. It's like that 1950s utopia. You ever seen that movie Pleasantville? That movie is a perfect allegory for essentially modernity and leftism and everything that the boomers brought into society. That movie sums it up perfectly. I'd recommend you watch it. Um, Again, 1950s the West was just it was literally as close to a utopia, a conservative utopia as you could possibly ask for. The problem is because there was no hardships, and because the previous generation before that a lot of the best of them died for the chosen people. They weren't able to raise the boomers in a way where they prioritized family values and God. No, the boomers instead became lovers of self. They became essentially Moloch worshippers. They became child sacrificing degenerates, and they sold us all out. All right, that's what happened. Boomer entitlement is driving Japan into the ground. They tax the youth into the sky and work them for 50, 60-hour weeks into early graves and depression. Mate, see what's happening in Japan? I've been looking into this quite a lot recently. There's actually a few YouTube channels where Japanese guys have basically shown their day-to-day life and shown how they'll wake up at like 6 in the morning, get the train to work. It takes them like an hour to get there because there's no jobs in their area and they can't afford to live in the city, right? Or they can't afford to live closer to their work. Some of these guys, like you say, 50, 60 hours, some of these guys are literally forced to sleep in their office. And I'm not even, I've seen videos of Japanese guys, they're like, I get to work and I've got to do all this stuff on my computer. I sit in front of the computer all day dealing with all this nonsense. And then by the end of the day, I'm not even allowed to go home until it's all done. So I've missed the last train home. I've got to sleep in the office. That's literally what it's like there. And I remember I got a job at Amazon, right, years ago. I've told this story before. Around about the time I made this channel, actually, I got a video. I got a job at Amazon in the warehouse. I quit after the first day because when I went there, I found out that people were actually camping outside because they couldn't afford to get the bus home or to get the bus to work and back. So they were camping outside. That's what it's like in Japan. People are literally sleeping in their office, working all day, going home, have a bowl of noodles, watch an anime, jerk off, and then wake up at 6 a.m. and go, like it's just again, it's so sad, and that's all to pay the pensions of the Japanese boomers, you know, who screwed them over too. They're in a same situation as us, you know. Yeah, you can't market a guy with no personality. I'm baffled why our government was so anti-German back in the day. We decided to side with our historic number one enemy, France, instead of yeah. Because how many times did France and Britain go to war? Again, they always had that crazy rivalry, didn't they? I mean, even William Wallace wanted to side with France over the English at one point, which I found weird. You know, houses in London in 1990s were 80k. Presently, they're nearly 1 million. No wonder second and third boomers have second and third homes. Yeah, boomers have second and third homes so that they can screw over their children. Do you know? I was reading a story recently. It was this young guy was talking about how basically he lives with his parents, right? And the reason he lives with his parents is because he works for his dad's business. So his dad is, I think, a Gen Xer, right? And he owns some sort of construction company. And his son works with him, right? So he's give his son a job, and it's just convenient for the son to live nearby because they work together, right? So so he can save money on having to pay rent and all that. He's living with his parents, and apparently he was the guy who was telling the story was saying that his boomer grandparents came to visit, and he doesn't see his grandparents very often, right? But apparently his grandpa was outraged, like absolutely outraged, because the dad isn't charging the son rent. And the dad explained to him, he was like, "Well, if I charge him rent, that means that I've got to pay tax on top of that rent. So I'll essentially be making less money in the long run than I'll be making by him just staying here and working for me, you know, working for my business for a fair wage." And the boomer parent wasn't having any of it. Like, so the boomer grandpa was like, if he was living with me, I'd be charging 2,500 a month rent. That's what he was saying. And the guy was basically saying it let me know that my grandpa's a piece of shit, and I'm glad I have nothing to do with him. But that's typical normie. I mean, that's typical boomer thinking, right? Boomers will literally charge their own flesh and blood full price for rent, or sometimes even more price for rent, right? It's like, I mean, seriously, it's his own grandchild who's working his ass off to build up the family business, right? And is just living in essentially his own living quarters in the building just because it's convenient. And to the boomer um, grandparent, he finds that crazy. The fact that the dad isn't like capitalizing on his own flesh and blood. Doesn't that just sum up the mentality of boomers? How to them, their children are essentially a commodity. They're not people. They don't even see their own offspring as people, and they don't see them as an extension of themselves. No, they see them as a way to make money. They see them as something that needs to be exploited. That's what boomers are like. Like, it's shocking. You see how much silver and gold are increasing. I don't owe gold. My missus does though. She has some gold, but not me. No. But I've always found it a bit too confusing. I'm not saying we should have sided with Germany either. We could have just stayed out of both world wars. Bingo. That's what I was going to say. Bingo. Um, because they were none of our business. Guess there was money. But yeah, we shouldn't be involved in any world war. Why is our country? Why is our country involved in a war that's going on halfway across the world or in Eastern Europe? What's that got to do with us? Absolutely nothing. Our military should defend our borders, and that's it. We live on an island. We shouldn't have anything to do with foreign wars. You don't understand what Nordic women need to be in the workforce, so they tax both halves of the population. Well, yeah, it's the same thing, right? I mean that doesn't disprove what I was saying. Women being in the workforce, yeah, they tax both halves of the population, but also corporations benefit because they have twice the workload. They can now hire both men and women, and the same with immigration, right? They can hire more people because there's more people being brought in. In the boomers' day, that was a benefit to the boomers. It wasn't a benefit to their children or their children's children. No, it was a benefit to them at the time, and it funded their retirement. And we continue to fund their retirement by paying tax. Yeah, yeah. Um, I'd agree with that. House prices have become expensive in the UK. I bought a townhouse in London 2 years ago for 1.2 million pounds. Did you really? We've got a millionaire here. Hey, come on, man. You've been holding back with the super chats, man. You can afford it. um, for 1.2 million pounds, my grandfather was smart, and he bought a townhouse back in the 70s for 200k. Now it's worth 2 million. Yeah, well, your grandpa will be raking it in on rent, then money. He'll be charging some poor like working class Londoner who like probably works 70 hours a week to stay in like one bedroom in that house. There's probably like five more of them and all. He'll be raking it in. But hey, I want to know where you made your millions. Um, I agree, but it's never going to happen. The elites love war because they don't have to fight it. Yeah, they don't have to fight it. Just send the white Christians to fight it and kill each other for no reason. Again, die for the chosen people. That's how it is. Well, yeah, I mean, there was an ethnic cleansing of German civilians after World War II, and it wasn't the Germans who did it. Wasn't them that did it, was it? Yep, it's pure business. Did you ever watch the movies or new TV show called on Prime Video called Jack Reacher? No, I've never. I know what it is. He's like a big, massive guy, isn't he? Jack Reacher, who's like a soldier or whatever. But I never watched any of the movies or read the books. But I do know what it is. Christmas has become about showing off, getting stuff, follow the popular trend rather than being simple and more. Yeah, yeah. Christmas used to be a very, very wholesome time of year where family would get together and worship our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and remember his birth, right? But that's not what it is anymore, is it? It's consumerism, and narcissism, sadly. Yeah, they are worshiping capitalism. Again, it's ravenous consumerism. Yeah, how's it going, man? God bless you. My mother sent me a $10 pair of slippers. Best present I got. Oh, do you know what I love on Christmas? You know when you get like fluffy socks. That's like the best gift you get on Christmas, isn't it? Those lovely fluffy socks people give you because they're so comfy for the cold weather. Yep, Scots and England. Look, the Scottish and the English are the same people, as far as I'm concerned. There should have never have been any hostility. We're all British. We're the same people from the same island, same country. Soviet Union killed the most civilians by far. Britain and the US also firebombed civilian population centers, and obviously America nuked cities. Yeah, well, America still does that, don't they? Look at what they just did to Iran. You know, you telling me they didn't nuke any civilians? Come on now. Oh, but I'm sure that's okay though, because they support Russia. Evil Russia. Russia is so evil. We need to bomb their hospitals because Putin. He is Darth Sidious. Um, the Scottish, when it comes to football, always cheer when the England team fail due to them being damn bitter and jealous that England does better than them. Pathetic. Yeah, it is. That is pathetic. It's true. I've always found that pathetic. Literally, they'll cheer for foreign teams to beat England just because they don't like England. It's honestly embarrassing as a Scotsman that takes place. It is, man. Good thing with precious metal is silver and gold only increase the worse the economy gets. Inflation increases, the value of silver does as well. Yeah, I don't blame people for making those kinds of investments. It's just too complicated for me. You know, I just stick my money into savings accounts. What I've started doing recently is every time I get paid, and I get paid every week, I stick about a ton into a savings account. So I'm saving something every week, you know. My parents are Irish. They never told me to hate England. Yeah, it's the elites that divide us. It's the elites, and most specifically the boomers that create this England versus Scotland bullshit. Even though England and Scotland are the same country on the same island, you know. I have a question. With the jacked up way the retarded boomers constantly fucked our society economy, wouldn't it be a great idea to get a small RV and pay that off? Do you know, I've thought about that myself. See if I get a driving license, I've thought about just living in a van, just getting a transit van and converting it into a home. That's what a lot of millennials did because they couldn't afford a house. And means you can just live wherever you want. The problem is you don't have all the comforts of home, which can be quite scary to give up, but it's definitely an option. It's something I've thought about quite a lot actually. I was dead set on doing it at one point, if truth be told. Maybe I will one day. Who knows? Regarding history can be quite manipulative when it comes to creating narratives. According to Muhammad Ali was a hero, while Holmes was a bad guy who punished Tyson. Well, Muhammad Ali wasn't a hero. I mean, he was an adulterer and and a bit of a thug, if truth be told. You know. Once it's paid off, you own it. It's less expensive than a house, or you can go to the jobs because you own it, and you don't need to have a full-time job. Deal with. Yeah, again, I've thought about it. I've thought about it at length. If do you know, if I was single, I probably would have done it already. I probably would have. It would be difficult to do with two people, though. That's a problem. I think. Regardless of political leaning, Nazi Germany and Japan caused the overwhelming majority of civilian deaths in World War II. This doesn't excuse the fact that unarmed people died, but perspective is needed. Yeah, I mean, it's not a competition, really, is it? But I know what you're saying. In reality, Ali did some disgusting things that harmed other families, while Holmes was just honest, who did his job and was hindered and pretty much ganged up on against Tyson. I mean, yeah, I know what you're saying. I mean, Holmes was a shot fighter when he fought Tyson, just like Ali was when Holmes fought him. It was a similar situation. I don't see it as that big a deal, to be honest. You know, what was he supposed to do? Take a dive? I don't think so. USR lost massive amounts of civilians. Numbers they throw around, including the deaths of USR, include unarmed people, but a large percentage, not just soldiers. Yeah, there's always going to be collateral damage in war, isn't there? If atheists believe in God or don't believe in God, why do they talk about him so much? We know why. Well, yeah, because they hate God, because they're demon possessed reprobates. That's why. I mean, in reality, they're not actually atheists. They're just haters of God. They're probably drugged out of their minds, schizos. You know, like imagine being 50 years old and still smoking weed. Like you gotta be like that kind of. You gotta be a next level retard. Um, USSR killed millions of their own civilians for collaborating with the Germans, and most of their deaths were due to starvation. Well, yeah, the communist Soviet Union starved like half the population, didn't they? They had an island where they all cannibalized each other, you know? Yeah, university is an absolute scam. Literally, unless you're one of the very, very few people who's gonna become a doctor or a lawyer, then university is absolutely a waste of time and money, and it is an absolute scam. You're gonna again, you'll go to university to learn about economics, and they won't teach you economics. They'll teach you about lesbianism. They'll teach you about lesbian pornography. That's what they'll teach you instead of, and you know how to suck cock, rather than how to actually, anything even resembling economics. So you end up leaving with no skills and a useless degree. Who are the absolute fake record frauds in boxing, or they were guys who are bums and well, you've got a few of them. I mean, Kawagi is the most extreme example, but yeah, Jake Paul's one of them. Joe Fournier is another one. Canelo Alvarez is another one. You know, there's quite a lot of them. You know, boomers love to go on long rants about kids these days. My old ass driver's ed instructor told me young people should be forced into military service, even though she never said. Mate, I know boomers, and I've said this before on here. I know boomers who spent the vast majority of their adult life fraudulently claiming disability benefits, saying that Zoomers and kids these days are lazy and they don't want to work. I'm not making that up. I know people like that. I literally know boomers who are alcoholics who spend all day sitting about doing nothing, claiming disability benefits despite not being disabled. And they talk about people of my generation being lazy. And apparently their generation are the hardworking ones that built society and pull yourself up from your bootstraps and all that bollocks. Like that is just it. That's the insane delusions that you get with boomers, man, and the lack of self-awareness, you know? Yeah, Deontay Wilder's another one. I wanted to tell her I don't give a crap about Ukraine. Why would you give a crap about Ukraine? Ukraine is the most, like, disgusting, corrupt country in Europe. It's literally just filled with junkies and, you know, sex traffickers and all that. And anybody that virtue signals about Ukraine is probably just a pot smoking hippie retard. You know, probably 50 years old and still smokes weed. You know, those kinds of people, scatterbrained schizos. But Russia, sovereign territory. Retards, honestly. Like again, the Project Ukraine is one of the most like embarrassing things that this country has ever been involved in. Most of the people who've never even heard of Ukraine probably couldn't even point it out on a map. Probably don't even know the difference between a Russian and a Ukrainian, because let's be honest, there is no difference. Probably knew absolutely nothing about that region prior to 2019. Are now talking about pray for Ukraine. I support the latest thing. I'm such a good person. And evil Russia. Like you've ever met a Russian in your life or give a crap about Russia. Yeah. I remember videos in lockdown that showed families losing their minds when getting a McDonald's. I mean, McDonald's is one of the most average, garbage fast food joints ever. Why so happy? Yeah, they're like so happy that the McRib or whatever, or the McApple pie, whatever they call it, was back, and they're making a big deal over it. Yeah, I really don't like McDonald's. McDonald's is garbage. Boomers live. Burger King's better. Saying that, I had a KFC today. It was pretty nice. Boomers lived a good era, generally, depending on the country. Their lack of empathy and ability to put themselves in the younger people's shoes shows a lack of intelligence. It's not just a lack of intelligence; it's a lack of humanity. Like boomers are like materialistic narcissists, and that's why they just view anybody who from lower generation, anybody who's not themselves, with absolute contempt. They see us as commodities. Again, they would have a grandchild live with them and charge £2,500 a month rent to a grandchild who's working for minimum wage and can barely afford to feed himself. That they will literally milk their own flesh and blood dry for a bit of money, despite having provided nothing to them. You know, nothing that wasn't required of them anyway. You know. Honestly, if this society wasn't so shit, every male child would have a trade coming out of high school with the option to go into an apprenticeship afterwards. Not everyone should go to college. Yeah, look, Every single male child, his father and his grandfather should have a business, or should have a trade, or should have some sort of connections in a workforce, and he should get them working before he's even finished high school. He should be taught how to use tools, taught how to drive, taught how to build, taught how to clean things, taught how to grow things. You should be taught how to work in a garden. You should be taught how to maintain a household. All these things should be taught to children and to young men. But no, what happens? The mother's in the workforce, the father's in the workforce. They come from a divorced, broken boomer family where the father and the mother were probably alcoholic pot smokers who went to Woodstock. So they destroyed their own critical thinking skills. They provided no trade or no culture or anything to pass down. They sold it all off for a little bit of good living that the younger generations, future generations were never going to have a part of. And they taught us absolutely nothing. When I was in school, I learned absolutely nothing. And I was just expected to succeed. I was expected to get a job. I was expected to go to uni. All that. I was expected to just know what it was I wanted to do in life, despite having been given no skills and no backing, no inheritance, nothing. I inherited nothing from my parents because I came from a broken home. Okay, I inherited no skills. I inherited no guidance, nothing. Right? I had nothing. And the same goes for most men from my generation. We grew up with nothing because our parents were raised by boomers who gave them nothing. you know, that's not how it should be. Again, young men, when they come out of school, should already have a job waiting for them. They should already have been given a work ethic that goes along with that job. They should be given the skills. We shouldn't be applying for a job and then getting told, oh no, you need to have 2 years experience to do this job. But obviously you need to have the job in the first place to get the 2 years experience. How can you have a functioning society? And then you wonder why people don't want to work. You wonder why people would rather be neats when benefits pay more. Believe me, if I could claim benefits right now, and it's impossible because I've been in the workforce too long to do that. If I could claim benefits now, I would. Because why should I, as a ethnic European, as a native of this country, why should I slave away for a system that actively works against our interests? I don't begrudge anybody for just saying screw the workforce and claiming benefits. I don't blame them. I don't blame anybody from this country. I don't begrudge them for gaming the system, because the system, it's not just broken, it's been set up by boomers to specifically work against our interests. So why should we serve it? Why should we slave away for it? Okay. Yeah, I've noticed it's mostly boomers and women who want war with Russia. The people who won't have to die fighting them want the war the most. Well, I get send all the boomers who want war with Russia, draft all of them into the army, and send them over to Russia so they can get their heads kicked in. Why not? You know, the petty Scotland England beef is ridiculous for the situation we are in right now. We need to unite. No more brother wars. Amen. Amen to that. Without Scottish soldiers, there would have been no empire. Yes, absolutely. There should be. The Scots and the English are the same people. Okay, we are the same people. There's no ethnic difference between us. We're all interbred anyway with each other. So what? Why should they be enemies? Because you happen to fall out of a vagina on one side of the border, that means that you're my enemy. No, it's ridiculous, man. Scots and the English were the same people. What a stream to catch. Hope everyone had a good Christmas with their families. Yeah, same to you, man. God bless you. Oh yeah, trades are a good thing, but they're a dying thing. There's a lot less of them now. Sadly, going off the grid is the best option. You need major wealth. Yeah. You need to already be rich to go off the grid. You're not just going to be able to go into the woods and live like an animal. Those woods are probably owned by some boomer who will have you kicked out of them. Most university degrees are useless. I ended up working in my father's company because I couldn't find a job. Yeah, that's what happens. Again, I know boomers that literally have a university degree and work at McDonald's, work there full time. I'm not even joking. Yeah, same to you, man. I hope you had a good Christmas. God bless you. The best way to end up in life is pretty much living in a cabin in the woods, away from every person. Sound nice, can't lie. Yeah, it just won't happen because pretty much every square inch of land in this country is owned by somebody. Probably a boomer, you know. Probably a boomer owns it, and you're like, "This is my land." Funny story about that. Gone to college for design, but realized that that shit is a trash profession. Taught myself to code and made it work for the past 8 years. Literally self-taught and made and timed it. Brilliant. See, that's how it should be. Just find something you can make money off and do it. You know, why not? Eh? Hopefully, something you enjoy. College is really a waste of time. The citizens in World War One were almost starving to death in England. Yeah, they were. England had a major economic crash before World War One. People had it really tough, but the boomers had it really easy, and you see the results of that. It's like weak men create hard times. You know, that's what it is. I've been working full time since I was 18. I'm glad I didn't do 3 years of college like I initially planned. Yeah, don't bother with college. If you're working, that means you've been earning money and you've not been getting yourself in debt, which is what would have happened at college. Just work your way up and save up your money, you know? Where am I in this chat? To me, it helped. I had militaries and the G1 bill. Otherwise, I would have probably gone trades. Yeah. Was Brian Norman when probably it was a I didn't watch it, but probably. Yeah. Mate, do you copy and paste that comment on every one of my lives? I'm sure you do. Um, um, Fury has spoken about returning next year. Yeah, how's it going, by the way? It'll probably be pointless Usyk trilogy instead of AJ because Fury can't handle someone his own size. We may replace him as face of Brett. Well, from what I hear, he's going to be fighting Wilder. Usyk's going to be fighting Wilder. Apparently, that's going to happen. So that'll be interesting. Quite looking forward to that. I hope that does happen. That'd be funny, you know. Fury wouldn't have an easy time in the Klitschko rematch, although past it, Klitschko was still in shape and was coming off a good win against Pulev. A win that aged well, yeah. Well, I mean, Pulev's had a solid career, hasn't he? I know he lost his last fight, but he's had a lot of good jobs. He's beaten some fringe contenders. He won that WBA world title for what it's worth. So, and he was winning the Gassiev fight before he got caught and knocked out. So yeah, Pulev had a great career. He genuinely did. We defended World War, or we joined world wars defending countries that couldn't defend themselves. Belgium, Poland, surrounded by enemies. Yeah, but did we really though? I don't know, man. Who knows what even happened in World War II? There's that many lies about it, you know. The inflation of Japan is insane. I went in September and inflated. It's inflated even more within that time. Yeah. Yeah, it's sad. It's sad what's happened to Japan. It's like a nation, you know, used to really appreciate its cultural heritage and stuff, but now it's just become a nation of weebs who work all the time, work like 36 hours a day and all that. It's sad. I think Fury's only good when opponent is undersized or lacks skill. I think Vitaly Klitschko would have battered him. Oh yeah, I agree. Vitaly would have knocked him out, in my opinion. Yeah, but they're all interbred, so it's and they're from the same island anyway, so it's barely any different, you know. I mean, what's the difference between Germanic and Celtic? What's the difference, really? I mean, is there really much of a difference? I don't think so. They're both white, aren't they? So yeah, yeah, it does look really clean. Like my cousin lives in Japan. Talked about that before. Oh, in fact, saying that, I think he moved to Canada, but that's because he's working for a Japanese company that now operates in Canada, but he lived in Japan for years and years. He married a Japanese woman and all that. He even talks like a Japanese guy now. It's funny. Certain people want you guys to hate each other, but be fine when Africans and Arabs enter your country. Yet the Scot is unlikable to the Englishman and vice versa, due to divide and conquer. Yeah, that's a manufactured. I mean, it's just like the Russia-Ukraine war, right? Russia and Ukraine are literally the same country, literally the same people ethnically, but they're at war for some reason, killing each other because reasons. It's complete nonsense. Ali was a degenerate and ungrateful hype job. Holmes and Foreman were much more legit. Yeah, I agree with that. They were much better, for sure, at their prime. I was talking to a British socialist in the park about me owning two houses and as a foreigner and going to the UK on holidays. I felt like the Brit wanted to stab me and nationalise my house. Yeah, imagine that. Yeah, how's it going, Wayne? God bless you. Yeah, yeah, we were talking about that earlier. I didn't know anything about it. I was just told about it on here. I was the biggest Tyson Fury fan when he was the anti-PC, God-fearing Christian who came back to whoop Wilder by KO in rematch. He became narcissistic and threw it all away. Switched to AJ now. I think they're both narcissists, to be honest. Jorge Kawagi made Foreman look like Pacquiao in the ring. Julian's definition is slow as molasses. And what's funny about that is he was that slow even before he got those muscle implants. Like, if you go and look at Kawagi, clips of him before he got those implants, he was just as slow. I think it's just his genetics. He must have had some like rare um, muscular condition or something where he just moved slow. That's what it seems like to me. I hear boomers say they want to spend all their money so nothing is left for the. Yeah, they say that all the time. And there's like that's the thing. There's something like you'll see this in movies, right? There's a lot of movies that talk about how boomers leaving their inheritance to charity or leaving it to children and stuff. I mean, sorry, leaving it to like immigrants and that because they don't want to give it to their own flesh and blood because their own flesh and blood is selfish and lazy and doesn't want to work. When really the reason that they are that way inclined is because the boomers raised them poorly. They raised them in a broken home and didn't instill in them the kind of work ethic you need to survive and get through. And yeah, they basically they have nothing to show for their existence. Boomers, they piss away their inheritance and screw over their kids and their grandkids. And that's seen as noble. Disinheriting and disenfranchising your own flesh and blood, screwing them over for your own gain and for the gain of people who don't deserve it is pathetic. Modern society and life is based off work. You may be able to, when you can afford to have a wife and kids and afford a house when there's social cohesion, but in modern society, you have none of that. And you have no GF, one bedroom apartment, and you're expected to slave away all day until you die, having no meaning in life. Yeah, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and work harder. That's what we did, even though we didn't do that because we inherited everything from our ancestors. But you do that because we say so. I despise boomers, man. They piss me off. They really do. My family has an import and export company in Egypt. We managed to secure a contract with Danone, which helped us generate $40 million for the past 50 years. However, owning a company is stressful. Oh, I can imagine. It's like the more responsibility you have, the harder things are. I get that. I totally do. Money isn't the be all and end all of everything. Silver hit an all time lately because modern current is flat, inflated nonsense. They just print more forever. Yeah, true. You're wrong about Germany. Look up Codo forms. I won't go into it because Germany is the most lied about country. And pretty much everything you hear about Germany is flat out lies. Pretty much, I don't believe anything I hear about it. I went to Scotland with my GF back in July for 3 nights. We stayed in Inverness. Oh, beautiful. I love Inverness. And drove all over the Highlands and Isles of Skye. It was fantastic. Been there too. Beautiful. 14,000 miles road trip in total. Wow. Yeah, it's a beautiful country, innit? It's got some beautiful scenery and stuff. Evening all. How's it going, Larry? Hope everyone's having a restful, festive period. Well, yeah. You guys know I'm not. You guys know I'm not having a restful period. I've got today off, thankfully, and yesterday I was off too. That was my first Sunday I've had off in weeks. But yeah, it's been kind of stressful, but it's all right for now. What's annoying is a lot of these jobs require bachelor's degrees and additional years of experience, but they will still call it entry level. It's nuts, yeah. Whereas in reality, you could probably do that job without a degree if they would just let you. But more often than not, you end up flipping burgers anyway. Usyk versus Wilder doesn't interest me at all. Please bring on Kabayel, and I wouldn't mind a Talma too, since he'll be the dominant force in future. I'm still not sold on a Telma, to be honest. That's not a huge difference. Both were still white Christian people of European descent. Exactly. I don't see the point in England versus Germanic versus Celtic. That's just pedantic to me. You never spoken about this, but have you noticed Fury stiff arm? Yeah, I've talked about that constantly. I've mentioned it many times. His jab is most effective because he tires you with shoving his arm in your shoulder. Yeah, he flicks out the backhand. He hits you with the back of his hand and flicks it out, which is illegal, but he gets away with it. Yeah, I've been talking about that for years. Yeah, we're still white. Belgium and Poland are the official reason there was 100% agenda behind the war. Yeah. The only reason Usyk didn't KO him 2 times, old school Foreman versus new school, but trash Wilder. Foreman could get inside and maul Wilder. I could say, it'd be dangerous from outside, but I think he could get inside and beat him up. But we come from a different group with a different language. Even the Vedas of India are Indo-European. That's how far the Aryan influence spread. Oh yeah, there's white people all over the world. I mean, there was white people in there was white people with it in amongst Native Americans and all. A lot of people don't realize that. Some of them had blonde hair, blue eyes. Prime Vlad knocks out Fury, in my opinion. Have you seen Wild Robot Godzilla minus what? No, I've never seen that. Heard of it, I've never seen it though. Yeah, I've only watched. Have I ever? I think I watched the Zaur Abdullayev fight. That was the only full Haney fight I ever watched. I've not watched a single whole one of his other fights because that was all I needed to see. He sucks. He's garbage. Honestly, the best business is opening up a private school or private university. You'll be giving out Mickey Mouse degrees and printing money. Yeah, just charge people whatever you feel like. Like pull a figure out your ass and charge people it, and give them a degree. Tell them it'll get them a job, and then they won't notice how useless it is when they're working in McDonald's the rest of their life because they're too dense to understand how the world actually works because they're normies. Normies are usually sociopaths and stupid ones at that. I feel Ali fight with Cleveland Williams, Zora Foley, and Liston were fixed. Yeah, they were. Ironically, all three have conflating causes of death. Yeah, I know about that. Hang on a second, Mr. B. Wayne. Nah. Let's not go there. Forget I said anything. They found ancient mummies in China with ginger hair who was 6'6". I did hear about that. It's a bit bizarre, that, isn't it? You don't think of Chinese people being that big or having ginger hair. Maybe they're Zili Zhang's ancestors or something. And they ate a lot of chitin Charmaine back in the day. Who knows? A chitin Charmaine. People will look you straight in the eye and tell you Ali could beat anyone, while his heavyweight resume is literally midget Joe Frazier and 190 Henry Cooper. They were barely 6'2". Yeah, and both of them beat him. Henry Cooper knocked him out. Joe Frazier dropped him and smacked him about. And then he had to cheat to beat him in the rematches. Tio Shakur, I don't care. It'll be a fixed fight. Whoever the establishment wants to win will win. It'll be a fixed fight, like all their fights. No, they look like Caucasian people. Or you're on about the giants in China. I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe they're descendants of the Nephilim or something. I mean, a lot of people don't realize this too, but the ancient Chinese from 5,000 years ago, from like the aftermath of the time of ancient Babylon, they used to worship the god of the Bible. Like the original Chinese were actually monotheistic, and they worshipped the god of Israel. It wasn't until paganism infiltrated China from neighboring countries like India that they lost their way, essentially. But yeah, the Chinese back in those days used to, and it's interesting, they call Chinese Easterners, but they actually descended there from the West. So it doesn't surprise me that there were actually white people in China. Because, like I say, in the aftermath of the days of ancient Babylon, they were actually believers of the God of Israel. So that's quite interesting. Italma hasn't earned anything. If he gets a shot before Parker, that's criminal. Yeah. Suppose the ball's in Usyk's court, isn't it? He can fight whoever he wants at this point. I still want to see the Wilder fight because I think it would just be funny. It would be comedy. The mummies weren't European though. I think they were similar, white passing Caucasians. I think similar to Chechens. Yeah. Who knows? None of us have the capability to do like a DNA test on them, do we? So I guess we'll never really know. We can only speculate. Shakur's the better fighter. Tio versus Sandor Martin was the same style matchup. Well, yeah, Sandor would have beaten Tio if it was a real fight, but he was obviously told to spar with him and take it easy. Seeing that you were a big fan of the German boxing scene, which fighter was the best? Sven Ottke, without a doubt. I think Sven Ottke was the greatest German fighter of all time. Zhang's the undisputed king of China. Yeah, he could be. Well, see, Masker beat Ottke in the amateurs. I know that they were rivals in the amateurs. But I think as a pro, Ottke was better. I think he developed into a better boxer, a better fighter. Masker was a good fighter. He was fundamentally sound, but he wasn't as technically complex as Ottke. Ottke was just as fundamentally sound, but he was a lot better at positioning, and he had much better defense. So I think he was better. Had a better resume too. Fraser got screwed by his own corner. If they'd waited Ali to quit, he would have won the trilogy. Foreman got screwed by his trainer. Should have forced him to stay in the middle of the ring. Yeah, in the Foreman fight, they got the tactics wrong. In the Fraser fight, like you say, they jumped the gun and stopped it because of his eye. And if they'd have just let him go one more round, he would have won. I'll be back in a second. I'm just getting a drink out the fridge. Here we go. Got myself a can. Give him a chance. Watch him versus Regis. He's not bad. Who's that? I forgot who we were talking about there. Yeah, he did duck the Foreman rematch because Foreman would have knocked him out in the rematch. I think everybody knows that. I think everybody knows. Do you think you'll box in 2026? Hopefully. We'll see. I still want to. We'll see. Just hard to find the time for it. I'm a millennial, so I have to work so many hours a week. Otherwise, I'll starve to death. Because I'm from a lazy generation that doesn't want to work. If you could make a game about anything, probably some sort of medieval fantasy, but like where you play as a Christian and you fight demons, that'd be based. I'd like that. To be honest, I think people are only putting the boot into Fury because he lost. Had he beaten Usyk, people wouldn't be saying he'd lose to the heavyweight. So yeah, if Fury was still undefeated, go away, antivirus bullshit. Keep getting that antivirus pop up. What was I saying? If Fury was still undefeated, people would be ass kissing him to no end. But it's easy to kick a man while he's down, isn't it? Angelo Dundee would complain commentating while when a fighter was doing some dirty fighting. Yeah, he was the guy who cut Ali's gloves and cheated. Yeah, what a scumbag that guy was. Absolute degenerate. I think you Stocky Supreme would have KO'd Andrew Tate. He was pure. I heard about that. Yeah, chin in the air, no stamina, bottom G killed by Major. Do you remember I was talking before? I said this like I think a year ago or something on a live stream. How Andrew Tate, the way he fights, all he does is lean back and throw a front kick, right? So he relies on being tall, leaning out the way of punches, and keeping his opponent at bay with the front kick. If I were to just charge at Andrew Tate and keep my chin tucked and keep a cross arm defense, I would just throw overhands and just drop him. Because when he leans back like that, he's completely off balance, particularly when he's on one foot. So, like, even in an MMA fight, I think I'd kick his ass. I do. Like, I wouldn't normally say that about a guy who's like a high level pro. Andrew Tate wasn't a high level pro, though. He was basically, he competed in a minor league in kickboxing, and he was essentially a he was essentially a journeyman. Like it was kind of the equivalent of unlicensed boxing. You know, the Ali worship is so tiresome from the boxing pundits. If you dare to say that someone from this era would beat him or suggest he wasn't this moral hero, they'll say it's blasphemy. Yeah, kind of like if you say that Marilyn Monroe was a whore, which she was. People get offended by that. Like the way that people like immortalize these dumbass celebrities, it's ridiculous. Prime Fury is a myth, like Prime Mike Tyson. He had zero power against Vlad, was chinny and beat a bum in Wilder. He was the best possible version. Powerful against Usyk, yet still lost. Maskey stopped an old Barkley in round 9, also beat Graziano Roggiano twice decently. Yeah, Maskey was a good boxer, but I think Otke was better. I think the reason Maskey won in the amateurs is because he was just so much bigger and he used his height and reach. But Otke learned how to deal with big guys. If you look at when he fought Silvio Branco, for example, similar sort of size to Maskey, similar sort of style, Otke completely schooled him. And I think he made him reach and countered him quite well. Like Otke was good at fighting taller opponents. He was very good at it. Angelo Dundee even admitted to opening the hole, which is blatantly fans excuse it. I mean, the fight should be overturned, and it should be a disqualification win in retrospect for our Henry, Henry Cooper. At the time, it should have been a Henry Cooper knockout win. Fury did better in the first fight than AJ did in either fight. But AJ did better in both than Fury in the second. Just the first fight, Fury did better. Yeah, Andrew Tate is crazy. Like he's now, because he brags about being an alpha male and all that shit. He literally lost to some misfits bum. How can you be an alpha male who can whoop a man's ass and all that and is like the ultimate example of masculinity, and then you're losing to a misfits bum who can't even box, flailing like a little girl, like fights like a Shaniqua or something. He's an absolute bum. Yeah, boxing training takes up so much time. You got to do strength training, cardio, actual boxing, then got to work as well. Yeah, it is tough. It's very tough. And not only that, I tend to work on nights where the boxing is on, so it's hard to even find time to get a bag to hit and spar and stuff like that. It's quite difficult. It really is. Ali relied on his height, reach, leaning back and leaning on opponents wouldn't work. Because they were too big. You can't lean on a guy that's bigger than you. It doesn't work like that. If you want, I'll review it. I mean, that movie sucked. It was terrible. It was like garbage propaganda. But if you want me to review it, I will. I've got no problem doing that. That director, Ridley Scott's like a senile old weirdo too. Yeah, he's a terrible director. From the weight up, Fury looked good in the first Usyk fight. However, foot speed was absolutely night and day. Blah blah blah. Declined enormously. Andrew wasn't so bad before he gassed, but he gassed bad. Well, I mean, he should have been fit then. I mean, he tells people to train all the time, doesn't he? Tells them to do cardio. He should take his own advice, shouldn't he? Stop sitting on his ass smoking cigars and train. I mean, it's not like he's got anything better to do. Panama Lewis was also a scumbag of a trainer. Yeah, he trained Duran for a time after Leonard too. Apparently putting illegal substances on his gloves. Then, of course, the Resto versus Collins tragedy. Yeah, he was a piece of shit, that Panama Lewis. He was. Absolute scumbag. I don't know how they even allowed him to keep boxing or to keep working in the corner after those fights, Yeah, with the one that I mix, that one. I actually sparred with kickboxers. They lean backwards like Andrew Tate by countering with a leg kick. I was like, if I just blitz with my punches, then bulldozer right through them. Yeah, good kickboxers don't do that. Like, if you look at a lot of Dutch kickboxers, they're a lot more offensive. But guys like that, like Andrew Tate, are just they rely on their length and their height and reach and stuff, like and their explosivity. They don't rely on their skill and their technique. To answer your question, yes, Chisora would be champ in the 70s and 60s because he's too big and too advanced. Chisora would beat Muhammad Ali easily. Yeah, I do rate Lennox Lewis. I've got Lennox Lewis in my top 5 heavyweights. I think he's top 5. I think Lennox would beat most heavyweights. I don't like Lennox Lewis. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a fan, but I think he would beat most heavyweights from most era. Oh yeah, did I mention? I forgot to mention earlier. I finished the Razor Ruddock video. I haven't uploaded it yet, but I've got it. It's on my computer. I just need to I've even finished editing it and everything. It's going to be I'm going to upload that probably sometime this week when I've got the time. We'll see. Like, I would upload it right now, but I'm on a live stream and I don't want to upload the live stream and the video so close together. I'd rather wait a day or so. So yeah, I might even upload it tomorrow. That's probably a good idea, actually. So yeah, that's another retrospective that took me a lot of time. That's a hard one to say because Holmes is a better boxer by far, but Lewis is so much bigger and stronger and more powerful. So that's a hard. I'd go with Holmes on points at his absolute prime, I'd say. Yeah. How about Lennox versus Fury? I give Lennox a puncher's chance, but I go with Fury on points. I think Fury could like flick and maul his way to a decision. But yeah, I give Lennox a good. I just think stylistically that's a bad fight for Lennox. So it's a bad fight. Andrew Tate said God made him lose because he's mentally tougher than his opponent and that he can handle the loss better. Do you know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of the Muslims, or like when Amir Khan gets like sparked, they say that Allah willed it or something. Like it's one of them. But then when Khabib wins a fight, they say this is the proof that Allah is the one true God, and all that, and they like latch onto that. So that's a hilarious cope from Andrew Tate. If God did will it for Andrew Tate to lose, then it wasn't to symbolize his mental toughness and him being like the pinnacle of masculinity. No, it was for a completely different reason. It was for something completely different. But again, imagine calling yourself the ultimate alpha male and getting your ass kicked by a crappy like Misfits bum. Like that just is mortifying. His aura has been completely destroyed. The tater tots will never see him the same again. Appreciate to Blue Raspberry for the contribution. Appreciate that. God bless you, man. Should watch Regis versus Haney. You know, just because you gave me $2, I'll watch that fight. I'll watch Regis versus Haney at some point. So yeah. Yeah, I got a little enterprise going then, innit? People can pay me to watch fights. I guess my going rate to watch any fight is $2 then. That's all we start at. Unless it's like a Johnny Nelson fight, then you'll have to pay me a tenner. Yeah. But I appreciate the contribution. God bless you, man. Tate ruined his whole brand by taking that fight. Hilarious. Makes you wonder, why did he take it? Because surely he didn't need the money. Like, maybe he just thought it would have been an easy fight, and he thought his experience would carry him through. Do you dislike Lewis for the same reason you dislike Froch? Yeah, pretty much. They're both just dickheads, in my opinion. And they're both cowards, too, who ducked fights, you know. I think Crawford is a C-level fighter. My opinion on Crawford hasn't changed in the past 5 years. I think he's a decent enough C-level, like, journeyman with a manufactured career. That doesn't make sense. Lennox would beat Vitali. You had Vitali beating... Well, styles make fights, buddy. It makes perfect sense. Lennox only beat... Lennox didn't beat Vitali. The referee and the ringside doctor beat Vitali. Lennox lost every second of that fight, got his face smashed in, managed to open a cut with one punch, and exacerbated it with head clashes. And then Vitali's corner man made the cut worse by sticking his thumb in there and bloody opening it up even wider. And then despite the cut, Lennox was still getting his ass kicked. Vitali was still beating him to a pulp. And then they stopped the fight to ensure that Lennox didn't get knocked out in the very next round. So no, Lennox never beat Vitali. He never beat him at all. Lennox got his ass beat. And then the politics saved him from a devastating knockout loss. That was what happened there. You want me to watch Norman as well? Appreciate it for the contribution. All right, so you want me to do Brian Norman instead? Yeah, appreciate the contribution. God bless you, man. So you want me to watch Haney versus Brian Norman? I'll do that then. I'll watch Haney versus Brian Norman, and I'll talk about it in my next live. I'll give you my opinion on it. Tell you if I think it was fixed or not. So yeah, I'll do that. There's no problem. I also doubt Tate has anywhere near close to 750 million legal fees. Yeah, he probably did have to pay a lot of legal fees for his incarceration in Romania. So that's a good point there. Maybe he did need the money. You think he'd have fought someone with a bigger name, though? Like, could he not have got a Jake Paul fight? Like, that would have made him... I'm sure Jake Paul would fight him. I'm sure he would, you know? Tim Witherspoon would probably be too tough for Andy Ruiz. He'd probably break him down, I think. Like at his absolute prime. Andy Ruiz might be a better boxer, but Tim was a lot tougher. A lot bigger puncher, too. Like, at his absolute prime, I'd say. Crawford moved up to fight someone shorter with less reach and way slower, yeah. Because again, Crawford was massive for the welterweight division. So when he moved up, he was still bigger, which is crazy to think. How did he make weight? Usyk wants Western or American appeal, but I hope his faith doesn't weaken from temptation. Yeah, I hope he stays steadfast in his faith, his belief in the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I hope he does. I hope he never compromises on that. The problem with kickboxers is that they have no head movement and their guard isn't dynamic. I was actually shocked at how low Tate's fight IQ was. Yeah, I suppose it depends on the kickboxer. Like, there are kickboxers who can box really good, but it's just that Andrew Tate came from a very, very low amateur league of kickboxing. You know. He was never really a pro, was he? He was more semi-pro. Again, like unlicensed boxing. That's what it was like, you know. I wonder who on earth Fury will fight next year. I mean, Frank Warren manages all his potential opponents. Well, I mean, Frank Warren could get him an easy opponent then, and then have options on the winner. I could see Fury just fighting like a Jared Anderson or someone, or like maybe even like a Tony Yoka, like just someone who's got a name that would be easy. just to get back into the winning column. Yeah, no worries, man. God bless you. Again, thanks again for contribution. I appreciate it. God bless you. Fake Paul would have badly KO'd Andrew Tate. Funnily enough, he probably would have. He probably would. Like Jake Paul, even without rigging the fight, could probably beat Andrew Tate. That's how unfundamentally sound Andrew Tate is, you know. Where was I? Vitali pummeled Lewis. Really a paper win for Lewis. He took a humongous uppercut. Yeah, Vitali was never hurt at any point during the fight. He put an absolute beating on Lewis. Lewis was gassed, was ready to collapse at the end of the fight. Was relieved when the fight was over. Vitali was kicking his ass. He just happened to get caught with one shot that opened a cut. And the cut was exacerbated by the head. You know, Lewis's bloody dreads were like rubbing against it, and the cornerman made it worse. But even with the cut, Vitali would have won by knockout if they'd have just let it continue. Yeah, he wasn't. Usyk never mentioned the Olympics being satanic. Said the ceremony was fine, or maybe he just didn't notice. I don't know. I like him because he's not born with natural gifts, power, but still makes it work through discipline, training, and skill. That's what's inspiring about Haney. Oh, okay. I'll watch the fight. How highly do you rate Weatherspoon, by the way, Nordic? Would you see him? How would you see him doing now against your top? He wouldn't beat any of the top five. Not any of my top five. He'd lose to them all. Some of them would probably stop him. Most would probably beat him on points. I don't think he would have achieved that much more. I think he went as far as he probably could have, to be honest. I know he had problems, but again, he wasn't the most talented guy. He was a tough guy, big puncher. Wasn't that talented. Even Wardley would be risky deep down. He wants Usyk because he knows he can't accept being second best. Yeah, Wardley would put it on him and be very, very dangerous as long as the fight lasted, you know. Remember when Barrera schooled Prince Naseem? Yes, I've seen it. Before the fight, Naseem said, if I lose, it was written down by Allah. Oh, yeah, when the fight ended, Jim Lamb said, well, I guess Allah, he knows how to spell Barrera. And then George Foreman got all offended by it. That was funny, that. I don't think you like him very much, George. No, he's like, I like him just fine. That was pretty funny. I don't care for Lennox. He's a secret P. Diddy Batty man. And his manager is a woman now. yeah, he is, yeah. Frank Maloney had his balls cut off, or did he? I don't know. Ever since Richardson Hitchens became champ, he's ducked everyone. Says he won't unify with Gary because Gary Antoine doesn't have a name. Well, I mean, I heard of Gary Antoine before I ever heard of Richardson Hitchens. I'll say that for much, you know. I would have thought that Gary was more well known than him. Usyk's a bit of an oddball, honestly. Well, he's a tough oddball, isn't he? I hope we don't have to pay £28 to watch Usyk beat Fury 8-4. Usyk, Wardley, Cabello, Talma is a perfect ending to a career. Yeah, I agree with that. Merchant never seemed to like the likes of Prince Naseem or Mayweather. I don't blame him. Why would he? Why would you like Prince Naseem or Mayweather? Like, speaking of Prince Naseem, they're making a movie about him with bloody Pierce Brosnan playing Brendan Ingle. I don't know. I find that pretty funny. You know, people always used to joke about Brendan Ingle being a pedo and all that. I wonder if they'll like reference that in the movie. I probably won't watch it though. No interest. Wonder if Fury is retiring to cycle off Peds though. Why would he need to cycle off Peds? He's not being tested, is he? You know, I don't know. Maybe. Think either Wardley or Caballel will beat Usyk now. I mean, they could if he gets injured or gets sold overnight or something like that. I don't know. It's called Giant. Yeah. How do you score packet? I don't remember years and years ago that fight. I cannot be bothered watching it. I tell you what, if somebody gives me what would my going rate be? My going rate to watch a fight is I said $2. See if you want me to watch a Mayweather fight, I'll take a tenner. I'll take $10, a $10 super chat. Then I'll watch a Mayweather fight, and then I'll tell you how I scored it in my next live. Aside from that, I'll never watch a Mayweather fight. So yeah, you actually have to pay instead of me paying like a pay-per-view to watch Mayweather fight, you got to pay me to watch it. And my going rate for watching Mayweather is $10. That's my going rate. Yeah, the Prince movie. Yeah, it's called Giant. Well, I don't know why they're calling it Giant. It must be like something ironic because the dude was a midget. He was like 5'4", so he wasn't a giant. Or Chris Bird. Yeah. Keyshawn Davis or Frank Martin. Keyshawn Davis would win that probably. Frank Martin's very one-dimensional. Yeah, Royd Gayweather. Floyd Gayweather. Yeah, that's a good one. I think Fury will take a tune-up and then fight Wardley. Do you know Fury versus Wardley at this point is a good fight? That's a good fight. Fury versus Wardley. Like Wardley would have a good chance. I still favour Fury, but Wardley, state he's been in since the Usyk fight. Yeah, Mayweather is a blithering idiot. Like Professor McGonagall, you blithering idiot. Usyk looked more powerful than ever in his Dubois and fight film mentioned his punching or whatever. Punching technique improving and his right hand being better too. What do you think? Do you think he could KO Tipsy Queen in a third bout? Well, he could, but I feel like Fury is the kind of guy where if he wants to survive, he'll survive. If he wants to not get knocked out and just spoil, he'll do it and he'll go the distance. Fury's very, very difficult to stop. I think to stop Fury, especially if you're like Usyk's size, Fury will have to give you the openings. He'll have to try his hardest to win the fight himself and then leave himself open. But if he does what he just did in the second fight, even without a training camp, Fury could just spoil and go 12 rounds against anybody, pretty much, He strikes me as that kind of fighter, Nazim was 5'3", yeah. So I was being generous when I said 5'4". Then I guess, yeah. Flomos. Can make a movie about Floyd and call it Flomo. I don't know, something like that. That'd be funny, wouldn't it? How much would it take to make you react to Andrew Tate's 50-minute cope rant video after losing to Chase Dim? Oh, could I even sit through that? I don't know. Like 20 quid, £20 super chat, and I'll do that. Yeah, so yeah, £20 super chat, and I'll watch Andrew Tate's 50-minute cope rant, and I'll react to it on a live stream. Like I'll talk about it in a live stream. Gotta go to work. But yeah, God bless you, man. Thanks for coming. Thanks for stopping by. God bless. Richardson did nothing to even get a title shot. He's a plant that happened to meet the right person, Eddie Hearn. Yeah, I forgot he was being promoted by Eddie Hearn. I don't know. I forgot about that for some reason. I always imagine, these like black American fighters. I always imagine, like, I guess I'm still stuck in like 2016 or something. I'm imagining they're all like PBC guys being promoted by Al Heyman or Leonard Ellaby or something. Like, I always forget some of these guys are actually involved with Eddie Hearn, and like some of them have fought on Frank Warren cards and all that. I forget about that sometimes. I love how Wardley always comes to fight, doesn't tap him. Yeah, Wardley's an odd man. He's a tough guy. He's a guy who comes to break you down and stop you. He doesn't come to play tiddlywinks. He's not about all that. He's a you can tell he comes from the unlicensed ranks. That's what he's like. I watched Mayweather versus Maidana too. Honestly, thought Maidana clearly won that fight. He won both. He won the first fight more clearly than the second, but he won both. He won both clearly. Like the second fight, he just outboxed him. The first fight, he beat the piss out of him and won clearly. Fight Film doesn't seem to like uploading anymore, but I see him in comment. Yeah, probably for the best. I think Vitali would probably points Fury, but there's a bigger chance of him KOing Fury than Usyk due to matching his size. I agree. Vitali would more on inside too. Yeah. I could see Vitali maybe dropping Fury a couple of times, but I think Fury would get up and probably survive and spoil his way through it. Vlad might have had enough power in his prime to knock out Fury, though. I think so. if they made a movie about Canelo, they'd have to call it Can-Elo. Can-Elo. That's funny. Can-Elo. Oh, brilliant. Call it The Ginger or so, I don't know, some stupid name that they come up with for these boxing movies. Andrew Tate be like, The Matrix required me to lose 48 laws of power. Or Mercury was in retrograde or something like that. I don't know. So some BS he'd come up with, innit? Andrew Tate was always like, I never bought the Andrew Tate scam. He was always a bell end to me. I never found him like an alpha male and all that rubbish, you know. I'd kick his ass. I would. A lot of Fight Night Champions corner trainers would literally tell, yeah, what American trainers say, yeah, they would. They go, yeah, there you go. There you go. Wardle's from the hard road. Yeah, he's the hardest. He's the hardest man in Britain probably right now. He might be, you know. Like, he's not the best boxer, but he's hard. You know, he's proper hard. Fabio Ward. Like, if you met Fabio Wardley in, like, a dark alleyway, you'd shit yourself, wouldn't you? Like, could you imagine, like, if you got sent to prison and your cellmate was Fabio Wardley? Like, you'd absolutely panic. Like you'd die inside if you saw that guy was your cellmate. You're like, I'm screwed. I hope he looks a lot nicer than he is, you know. Wardley is a more superior version of Wilder. Wardley and Zhang. I'm starting to think your fight film on a fake account. I don't know. Wardley and Zhang are my favorite right now. Yeah, they're both big guys. They both got great chins. They both got a lot of power. They're both guaranteed entertainment. You know. Did you see Nick Fuentes, Dick Rider, woman propaganda got slapped? No, who was that? Who's woman propaganda? I don't know who that is. I'll need to look that up. Who slapped her? Was it just some random like leftist or whatever? Wardley has the kill or be killed attitude, although I think his rise to the top was kind of manufactured. I don't really have a bad word to say about Wardley, the fighter. I do think he had some fixed fights on his way up, and it's very unusual for an unlicensed fighter to get a license to box in the UK without, like, to box professionally without an amateur career. So I do think he had some backing, but I do think he's a good fighter. I genuinely do. Terence Crawford. Yeah, it's like someone else said. Terence Crawford will be forgotten about in a few years, practically, you know. Yeah, I mean, I must admit, in the first fight, I think I was favouring Wardley slightly, but then in the rematch, I was quite confidently picking Fraser Clark, and Wardley went out and destroyed him. So that did surprise me, especially since you would expect the Olympian, the guy with the amateur pedigree, to have the experience to know how to adjust after the first fight and to end up winning. But yeah, he didn't end up winning at all. He stood right in front of him and got knocked out. I was really surprised by that, you know. Bomb Squad. His analysis is excellent. I don't know why Fabio is a name that sounds turbo gay, and I can't take it seriously. Sounds like an Italian name or something, doesn't it? Both because of his name and his manufactured record. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of it is manufactured, but again, I wouldn't want to run into that guy in a dark alley or have him as my cellmate. I'd want him as backup working on the doors, though. I tell you that. He won't get any trouble there, you know. Italma is way more protected than Wardley. Wardley was given several wins through tough tests. Yeah, he's had some tough fights, like the Nathan Gorman fight and whatnot. Nick Fuentes' brand is calling everyone Jew, even if they're genetically 80% European. He'd call actors who have one Jewish grandparent brown instead of white proper insane. Yeah. Yeah, the whole anti-Jew thing, don't get me wrong, I get it. But I feel like a lot of people have been radicalized, but you know, and manipulated by the left to basically see all Jewish people as the enemy. And look, I don't want to. I've covered this at length before. I don't want to get too much into it, but I feel like that's part of the reason why Nick Fuentes has been allowed to thrive and why he's been pushed by the algorithm. Because let's be honest, if I said the kind of things Nick Fuentes said, I'd be permanently banned. The fact that Nick Fuentes is allowed to have a following and a presence on the internet tells you everything you need to know. That you can't, you can take the good with the bad. When he says something good, when he says something that makes sense, you can praise him for it. You can use that information and take the positives from it. But don't hang your hat on this guy and think he's always going to tell the truth, because he's human being, and human beings are inherently flawed. We all have our black and white way of thinking isn't good. We all have our positives and negatives. Two of Wardley's. Oh crap! I've just zoomed in. I didn't mean to. How do I fix that? Let me refresh the page. 1 second. Sorry about that. Yeah, sorry about that. I bloody zoomed in on my thing and I needed to refresh the page. I don't know what happened there. Let me fix my user thing. All right, here we go. Where was I? Two of Wardley's last wins, you could argue, but yeah, the Parker fight was just a flat out robbery. I mean, he should have won that. Parker should have won that fight. He shouldn't have been stopped. It was what you call a classic British stoppage. Fabio is the name of a romance novel cover model, and he's Italian. Yeah, that's probably why I found it sound like Italian. I don't get what people see in Mayweather. Just a very athletic man who fights like a bitch, doesn't show any elite skill in the ring whatsoever. I was saying that back in 2010 that Mayweather sucked. I think he's garbage, and I think his fights are fake. And he lost numerous fights. Like, I thought Miguel Cotto clearly beat him. Pacquiao clearly beat him. Loads of guys did. Wardley's experience comes from training camps with Dillian White and other top-ranked heavyweights. Yeah, that's true. He's a good sparring partner, I take it. Italma's the only fighter with faster hands, feet than Usyk. Don't know about that. And he's a southpaw. Yeah, but Uzi fought. What's he really done? Have you heard of clavicular or Lux Max's? I don't know what you're talking about there, mate. I have no idea. How you doing, mate? I don't know what that means. I must have missed it. There's plenty of good Jews or half Jews like Stephen Miller, who is the most based member of the Trump admin, yet Nick still hates them and counter signals. He cut deal with the feds after J6. Because he was at January 6th, and he did a lot of the things that guys are in prison for, like quote unquote undermining democracy, and inciting more violence. Nick Fuentes did all that as much as anybody, but somehow he's allowed to walk free. Whereas, I mean, even Alex Jones got in a lot of trouble and he didn't even do nothing on that day. But yeah, there's a lot of guys who are rotting in federal prison, possibly for the rest of their lives, without a trial. But Nick Fuentes doesn't get nothing, He doesn't get no charges, does he? Fabio Lanzoni is the romance novel guy. Women were thirsting for him in the 80s 100% of the time. You hear Nick, it's counter-signaling Trump and shilling some left-wing candidate as revenge for Trump, yeah. If we'll make the conservatives lose so that we can make the conservatives win, or some 4D like amazing plan that Nick comes up with. Yeah, that dude's the guy you want to like hang your hat on, isn't it? Ridiculous. Democracy is like, more democracy. You are infringing on more democracy because you are a fascist. Like, anyone that still uses the word fascist and uses that word unironically is just a retard. Again, probably killed all their brain cells from 50 years of smoking weed, and watching CNN and listening to like garbage leftist music. like the Beatles and shit. Oh, it's anti-establishment. Oh, but it's on TV though, and it's on the radio that's owned by, oh, you guessed it, the establishment. Yeah. They wouldn't play Johnny Rebel on the radio, would they? That's what you call anti-establishment, you know? It's like when people play a video game, oh, it's so dark and edgy because characters get raped and shit. But if they said the N-word or something, they would start freaking out like, oh, it's offensive, it needs to be cancelled. I mean, if they really wanted to be edgy, they would literally just promote Christianity and family values and say the N-word all the time. That would be edgy, you know? You don't be edgy by doing exactly what the TV and the radio tells you what to say. Thoughts on Boots Ennis versus Ortiz? I rate Ennis, but Ortiz hits like a tank. I would favor Ortiz if I knew it was going to be a real fight, but I don't know, man. Ortiz is the better boxer of the two by far, though, in my opinion. He's also like 5'7", 5'8", so he can't be a president. He's too short, yet people are shilling for a president. He calls everyone brown while being like 1/4 Mexican. Yeah, that's got to be some sort of subversion, though. Him being like part Mexican and talking about everyone's got to be like pure Aryan. But again, a lot of the time I wonder, is Nick Fuentes actually saying that, or are people just attributing those quotes to Nick Fuentes? I don't know. You'd have to really like spend a lot of time listening to him and deciphering what he's saying that he actually believes and what he's saying that's just a joke, because you can't always tell. A lot of the time it's ambiguous one way or the other, isn't it? But again, being 5'7", 5'8", I don't think has Nick actually said that there's a height requirement to be president, or are people just saying that? You know, kind of like the whole Hitler saying blonde hair. Everybody's got to be blonde hair, blue eyes. Well, he had like dark hair and whatever color eyes. I don't think Hitler ever actually said that. I think that was just wartime propaganda. And it makes me wonder if there's something similar going on with Nick, you know? Like, does he actually have a problem with people being part Mexican, or while being part Mexican himself, or is that just part of the overall caricature that people are creating? Who would you say is the most lukewarm Christian superhero? I don't know. Is there any lukewarm Christian superheroes? I don't know. I guess you can say the Punisher, right? Because the Punisher's a Catholic, but he kind of he only abides by his Catholicism when it's convenient, because of course he kills people, and he kind of uses the Bible as a justification for that, claiming an eye for an eye. But he's kind of liberal with the way he goes. I mean, he uses the interpretation liberally, as if he's trying to convince himself rather than he actually believes it, if that makes sense. So yeah, maybe the Punisher. Or you could say Daredevil as well, because he's supposed to be a Catholic as well. Yeah, well, no, Daredevil's supposed to be born again. Yeah, he dresses like a devil. Again, it's a subversion, but yeah, he's supposed to be a Christian. Italma has not been anywhere close to the level U6B. Yeah, of course not. He's still a prospect, you know. Presidents are almost always 6 feet or taller. That's why I don't think anyone's ever voted for a president due to their height. I don't think that's it. Again, that sounds to me like just another narrative that just came out of nowhere. I mean, all because presidents are usually pretty tall. They're not always tall. I mean, Ronald Reagan wasn't particularly tall, was he? From what I can recall, I don't know. I've not measured them all, but they don't all look very tall. I mean, Vladimir Putin's only like 5'6", and I know he's not American, but you know, a lot of world leaders are midgets. You know, women's height doesn't matter though. They can be 5'3" like Kamala. But Trump got to be tall. I've never heard that before. Like, I've actually never heard anybody comment on the height of a president or talk about it being important. Height's not actually as important as people think. Like, again, that's a narrative I've never quite understood. Like I see guys all the time, like midgets, like short guys who are like 5'3" and 5'4" and all that, and sometimes they're with a woman who's taller, and the woman seems to not care. Like, women nowadays seem to like twinks, especially like in my day, like millennial women like big guys, right? They always like guys who were not they didn't have to be like super tall, but they had to be big, right? They had to be big, strong lads. Zoomer girls don't seem to care about that. They seem to actually like lads who are small and effeminate, who have pretty faces, like Justin Bieber types. They seem to like that. So I don't think that height is as big a deal as people make it out to be. And I certainly don't think it matters in elections, because how would being tall affect your policies? I don't understand it. How do you see Big George, the comeback one, doing against a fellow tough big man like Joyce, Hrgovic, or Zhang? I'd give him a chance, but he's old. He's old. So he was in his 40s then, wasn't he? So you have to make him you have to make them the favorite, and they're naturally bigger than him anyway. Like, George was big for the time, but he's not big by the standard of guys like Joyce, Hrgovic, or Zhang. Reagan was 6 foot, had a full head of hair his whole life. Well, did he really? I mean, he might have had a hair transplant or wore a wig or something. You never know. Prior to hair loss medications, one of the best hair. I don't think anyone really cares about the physical appearance of a president. I've never heard anybody really. I mean, look at Trump. The guy literally looks like a clown. People still vote for him, don't they? Reagan had arguably the greatest head hair, 70 plus with zero hairline recession. It's like 1 in a billion. Well, I'm pretty sure hair transplants did exist then. I'm pretty sure they did. They just weren't as common. Plus, people wore toupees and all that, and they dyed their hair and shit. So I don't know. It's daft. It's all daft like appearance nonsense. I don't think it matters at all when it comes to voting. Hrgovic was in a fun fight with Adelaide, very good, but cuts it easily. I think people at world level have a better chance of stopping Hrgovic on cuts rather than knocking him out. Yeah, kind of like Vitaly Klitschko. Guy just couldn't be dropped near enough, but he could cut up pretty easily. You could beat him that way, like Lewis, Later Nordic. Interesting stuff as usual. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Been decorating while listening later. Yeah, God bless you, man. Yeah, it was good to see you here, man. Yeah, this is my first stream that I've done in like, what is it, a month and like 2 weeks or something. It's been quite a while since I last did a stream. I did like practically nothing with this channel, and because I've been so busy, it's like whenever I get these like intrusive thoughts or these ideas in my head, I end up just putting them on a community post or posting them on Twitter. And that's basically what I've been doing lately, So I've not had the time to do a stream or videos, I've seen Rolly Romero, and let me tell you, he's listed at 5'8". I'm taller than him while being 5'5.5". Yeah, he must be a midget then. Maybe he's like 5'4". That's weird. Yeah, good to see you here, man. Thanks for stopping by. God bless you. Yeah, we were. How's it going, Ken? Well, yeah, we were talking about that earlier. I don't know anything about it. It's just guys in the comments highlighted it to me. I never heard about it prior to that. But yeah, I guess AJ was living it up with some of that money that he made from Jake Paul that he didn't have to pay in tax. I did hear that he had to pay like 35 million in tax or something like that, and I guess what he had left from the purse, he was blowing it in Nigeria. Oh well, can live like a king over there, innit? But whoever was driving made a big mistake. Being short is brutal. Hair loss on top of it, is it? Not really. I mean, what is it life-threatening? Is hair loss life-threatening? And is being short life-threatening? I don't think so. There's plenty of people who are short, and there's plenty of people who lose their hair. You're not going to die because of it. There's a lot worse things you could be in a wheelchair. You could be like, you could be impotent. you could you could have one arm, one leg. You could be blind. You could be deaf. You could be deaf, dumb, and blind. You could be a liberal. You could be a homo. Like, there's a lot of problems you could have in life. Being short and losing your hair ain't that bad, No, Inoue would batter him. Let's be honest, he'd batter him. I envy Ronald Reagan and David Lynch. Follicle. You don't need to envy people for the way they look. Look, you look the way you're supposed to look, mate. All right. God did not make any mistakes when he made humanity. Okay. We're not all supposed to look the same. Yeah, but does he really though? Again, he's a leader of a country. He's going to have the best toupees that money can buy. Has he really got perfect hair? Well, you think LeBron James or whoever has perfect hair? No, he has paint. He's painted his hair on like bloody Steven Seagal or something. It's not perfect. Nobody's perfect, mate. Nobody looks perfect away from the camera or when they wake up at first thing in the morning. Right? I know you scroll through Instagram and it's like this doomer stuff. You look at the way people, everything looks perfect. That's not how people look, right? That's not how they look in real life. We can't all be Lord Farquaad. We can't all have like the perfect Giga Chad jaw. Like, it's just, and those long locks. It's everybody has their own problems and their own imperfections. That's what makes us who we are, Meanwhile, there's a guy in his 20s who are thinning, receding, but they're all 70. Well, it's natural. Every single human male, even females get receding hairlines. Every single human being at some point gets a receding hairline. It's just some people it happens earlier than others. That's how it is. Kim Jong-un had plastic surgery before seizing power to look more like his grandfather. Yeah, plastic surgery is really, really common in politics and celebrities and all that. You are what you are, and it usually makes them look worse. You are what you are. None of us should be ashamed of our height. Yeah, look, why would you be ashamed of your height? It's literally just how you were born. It's your genetics. Don't be ashamed of how you look. It doesn't matter. There's always someone worse off than you. Trust me. Everybody's different. Well, again, it doesn't really. Again, I see guys all the time. Again, I work the doors, right? So I see chicks all the time. I see young guys all the time. I'll see midgets, guys who are like barely 5 foot, with a beautiful girlfriend who's like 5'7". I'm not even joking. I see it all the time. In fact, women seem to prefer. Weirdly enough, I know it's the narrative that women like tall guys and they like chads with big muscles. That's not always true. Again, nowadays it was more true in my generation, but a lot of women nowadays seem to like twinks. They seem to like I'll see a guy and I'm like, the guy's like bloody 5'2", looks as if he weighs 100 pounds wet through. I could probably overhead press the guy and snap him like a toothpick, but the girls like him because he's got a pretty face. He's got I tell you what women like. They don't really care much about height. They don't really care much about hair. Right? You could be fully bald, or like what women like is they like a symmetrical face. Right? They like for you to have certain facial features. They want you to be pretty. They want you to be pretty and like as if you were just perfectly crafted to look a certain way. And of course, that there's other things like you like how much money you got and stuff like that. They don't really care too much about your height. Like, women are more superficial than that, right? Don't worry about height and hairline and all. They don't care about that at all. That stuff isn't important, like to hardly any women nowadays. I think Israel and Zionists are quite immoral. My problem with Groypers is that they're so far on the other extreme. Some will vote for a pro-abortion, anti-Christian candidate if they're anti-Israel. Yeah, it's like the hatred for Israel trumps reason for a lot of these people. They will literally vote for satanic degenerates if it means not giving money to Israel. It's like they're willing to prioritize everything over that. Well, I personally thought Inoue boxed very, very disciplined. It was the kind of measured performance that we know he's capable of, and I think it will do him the world of good going 12 rounds again and learning how to pace himself and use his stamina economically. Well, almost like it's genetic or something. Yeah, exactly. It's almost as if human beings all have different genetics and we don't all look the exact same. It's almost if. Support someone like Anna Kasparian because she's anti-Israel, even though she's a feminist, anti-Christian, yeah. And she's a leftist too, a self-confessed leftist. So it's kind of stupid, to support someone like that. I know a dude who had a beard at age 12. The other guy went bald. And I got a mate in high school, right? I remember he used to have like really he used to have like long blonde hair. Now he's like fully bald, but he doesn't even care because he has a nice beard, so he looks like a badass. Some people like it, and he's got a girlfriend who's like 8 years younger than him and all that. Like women don't care about hair. Plastic surgery was invented to reconstruct soldiers' faces after going to war. Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. Unfortunate genetics. Well, I mean, my idea of unfortunate genetics is someone like Jorge Kawagi, a guy who moves in slow motion. That's my idea of that. Height is 100% a factor. But a factor in what, though? Everyone is made in the image of God. Don't be ashamed of how God made. Exactly. God made you exactly the way you were supposed to be. Why would you want to change that? It's stupid, Yeah, they make decisions based on emotions. Unlike, well, traditionally men are supposed to be like that. And nowadays, a lot of them are effeminate twinks who act like women, I've seen an influencer named Cal Vackler trying everything to make himself look better as if he's like Ben in Zoolander. Yeah, that's just pure insecurity. It's gay shit, man. Men who obsess over their appearance are just gay boys, man. And men who constantly talk about other men's appearance and use it against them. That's gay shit. That's gay behavior. It's gay boy stuff, like narcissistic nonsense. I've seen blonde women hanging with Indians and Pakistanis in London my university days. I knew a Pakistani who simped for a Russian blonde by giving her gifts worth 70k. That's insane, man. Imagine that. Where did he get that amount of money? I don't support Israeli government or war. I just believe the country deserves to exist. Yeah, I mean, it's really simple. Do you believe it deserves to exist, or do you believe it needs to be nuked off the map? There's no real way to reconcile those two worldviews, is there? Yeah, there's nothing wrong with going bold. It happens to everybody at some point, If you are a giant monolith of a man, then the safety factor kicks. Girls feel safer than with look. Not always. Again, that used to be the case. Again, with millennials, like girls from my generation, girls I went to school with, it was always the stereotype, right? They always like the jock, right? They like the big guy, even if he's an asshole. If a guy's 6'2" and he's got big muscles and he kicks the little guys about, smacks them about, and dominates everybody, and he plays sports and all that, that guy, they're going to be attracted to that because he's a guy who's a protector, like a caveman. But nowadays, that doesn't seem to be the case. What I've observed is women from generations below mine actually seem to prefer effeminate men. And that includes men who are short. That includes men who are like squeaky voiced, who lack testosterone. And it includes men who just couldn't fight their way out a wet paper bag, never played a sport in their life. Women seem to like that. They actually, I feel like women have been kind of conditioned to like that. They've been conditioned to like twinks, whereas like big tough guys and all that, they don't really find that appealing anymore. At least that's been my experience, like it's different throughout the generations, I mean, Zoomer chicks have like very, very low standards. That they'll sleep with literally anybody. It's crazy, man. It is. Some men look attractive with long hair, and some look cool, bold, and short with a beard. Yeah, if you're bold and having a beard helps, it makes you look like a badass. Like I can't grow a beard, so I'll never have that badass like Viking look about me. But yeah, I just feel like a lot of these narratives are like misery porn. A lot of the stuff they say about, like, again, being short means you'll never have a woman. It's just bullshit. It's not true. Again, I see short guys all the time with like perfect 10 women and who are taller than them. It's crazy. It is crazy, If you actually like people, I want to tell these people who are always on the internet, just go outside and observe society and actually talk to people, and you see what I'm talking about. A lot of these like internet narratives are completely false, completely false. I'm a huge dude. It makes a difference. Well, what difference does it make exactly? Like, you'll need to be more specific. Pretty sure he was rage baiting, but Fuentes tweeted yesterday he'll only vote for a candidate if he's handsome. If he's handsome, yeah, he must have just been. You can never tell a lot of the time if Fuentes is speaking the truth or not, or whether he's just joking about. He jokes a lot, doesn't he? Are you on about the first Fantastic Four? I actually really like that movie. I do. I think the first one's quite underrated. I do. I know what you're saying. They're like with the Thing. A lot of young men will sleep with anyone as well. Yeah, a lot of them just again. People nowadays have very low standards for who they'll sleep with. It's disturbing, actually. One of my gym bros is 5'5", manlet, and pulls 10. Yeah, I've seen it. I see it all the time. Again, I'll see guys not an ounce of muscle on them, like thin as a twig, about 5'2", and he's got like a beautiful. He's with like a beautiful blonde chick who's like 5'7", and she's like, "That's my man," and all that. Like I see it all the time, and I'm like, "That's crazy." like they seem always like the Zoomer generation seem to prefer twinks. They seem to prefer small guys, but as long as the guy has like a pretty face, it's kind of gay, isn't it? It's weird. It's like, see, when you think about it, and I remember I was joking about this on a live stream once somewhere else, right? I was joking about how I was born same day as Justin Bieber, right? We're the same age, and Justin Bieber, I think he's shorter than me. What is he? About 5'6"? So he's a couple of inches shorter than me, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sure I heard that somewhere. He's very, very thin, very, very weak. Probably couldn't fight his way out a wet paper bag. If I was to like compete against him in a decathlon, I'd completely destroy him, right? I could probably like, if I was to have a fight against him, it's not even fair. I could like overhead press the guy and snap him like a twig, right? I'd just kick his ass easily. I'm just like genetically superior to him in every way. I'm so much stronger, so much more like explode. I would just destroy him physically, right? For obviously ignoring the fact that he's got money, right? But who would women find more attractive? Me or Justin Bieber? Again, I'm taller, I'm bigger, I'm stronger. I'd kick his ass. I'm more athletic. I'm probably smarter. Like who would they find more attractive? Well, they'd find him more attractive. And why is that? Again, ignoring the fact that he's got money. Let's pretend we're both got the same amount of money, right? Who would they find more attractive? Well, they find him more attractive. Why is that? Well, that's because he has a pretty face. It's because he has a nice, perfect, mostly symmetrical facial features, right? So, and he's got a full head of hair, so he looks like he looks like a kind of a cartoonish depiction of how a pretty man is supposed to look, right? So they would find that more attractive. So even though by every single natural instinct, right? Natural, like when you think of attractiveness in nature, right? You talk about men need to be big and all that, and they need to be fighters and stuff, like because they need to be protectors and providers, right? I would be much more suited to that than Justin Bieber. Again, I would kick the guy's ass easily, right? They would still find him more attractive just because of his facial features. That's literally all it is, right? So that tells you everything you need to know about modern women. It's not just about height. It's not just about physical capability. It's more superficial than that. It's literally just your face. Are you pretty? And have you got money? And stuff like, again, people get this stuff all wrong, and it's totally unnatural. It really is, All right, where was I? One thing I've noticed: women are attracted to toxic men. Oh yeah. Again, you could be a complete asshole of a guy, but as long as you're good looking, they'll like you. Surprising. I've seen attractive women work with blue collar jobs like public pot workers and waitresses. I was like, damn, maybe I should wife her. I felt sorry for those cute hands. Working blue collar, yeah. Yeah, pretty face. Like if again, you associate men with like that's a masculine thing. You want a woman with a pretty face, but women you dissociate them wanting a provider. But women seem to prioritize pretty face more than guys do now, which I think is a subversion. I think they've been brainwashed to think that way. Hence why you see these little twinks walking around with like perfect ends. Right, what was I? I don't know, man. I'm sick of talking about Fury. Jake Paul's promotional company is dragging out Ebony Bridges again for cheap. Ebony Bridges is like 40 years old. She's like a 40-year-old hooker with tattoos and all. There's no eye candy there. Not for me, anyway. Some girls still like traditional strong. Yeah, some girls do, but mostly millennials, right? Mostly girls from our generation. They like traditional strong men. I find Zoomers don't really care about that. Justin Bieber's 5'7". Well, again, I'm one inch off. I'm still taller than him, so I'm an inch taller then. But I'm also a lot bigger. Like I've got way bigger muscles than he does, way bigger bones. I'd kick his ass easily. Women want boys for commitment and fantasize about 6'5" men in their female brains. Well, not only 6'5" men, but see if you look up like female erotica. It's not just humans they fantasize about. You'd be surprised how much bestiality there is in female erotica. Less I say about that, the better. That's the kind of thing they fantasize about. How much to get me to watch an anime? It depends on the anime. There's some anime I just won't touch. Suggest an anime to me that you want me to watch, and then I'll come up with a price. Bieber did spend a year or two boxing with Mayweather. Hey, do you know he spent a year or two boxing with Mayweather? That makes me even more confident I'd kick his ass. Even more confident, What's he gonna do? Shoulder roll me? Remember that all this feminist garbage has taught a lot of women to hate real men. Yeah, because they have what do they call it? Penis envy or whatever. They will find Justin attractive because you can't. Are you sure about that? I can't sing. Because that sounds like a challenge to me. Do you want me to sing Justin Bieber? I don't know any Justin Bieber. No, yeah, there's the baby, 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 oh, baby, 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 oh, baby, 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 oh, thought you'd always be mine. See, I can sing, so get it up, you. See, I've got the voice of an angel in addition to my stunning good looks and my alpha male physique. So Justin Bieber can suck it. He's like beneath me in every way, shape, and form. Not only would I kick his ass, I would beat him in a singing competition as well. Do you want me to say sorry? I'm missing more than your body. I don't know. I'm trying to think of Justin Bieber lyrics that I've been like forced to hear against my will on the radio. It's also very attractive to follow trends and sell out. Yeah, to be an NPC and say I support the latest thing. Justin Bieber's balding. Oh, is he now? Oh, well, he can afford a wig, can't he? Or he can afford a hair transplant. So I think he'll be fine. They want twink Timothy Chalamet, but fantasize about buff Joe Manganiello. Yeah, probably. Yeah, some of the sparring's pretty savage, but I doubt Justin Bieber did any. I doubt Justin Bieber wanted to give himself brain damage, sparring with some of them psychos, The new Resident Evil Leon Kennedy model looks way old, 40 plus. Well, I mean, Resident Evil's been around since the 90s, so they should be old at that point, if it's continuing on the same canon, Yeah, Genghis Khan had thousands of girlfriends. Imagine him reading pickup books and learning game. Yeah, he didn't need to because but by girlfriend, you mean he just found the nearest woman and picked her up and like raped her at knife point, basically. And then forced her to bear his children. Hey, Nick Fuentes would call that based. Yeah, thank you for always being honest about Canelo's overrated career. I appreciate it, man. Thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll always keep it real. You know that. Women want you to be a 6'5" Greek statue face. Men want thin and cute with normal height. Yeah. But of course, some men are picky. I mean, you want them thin and cute, but you also want them to have like big waists and big tits and all that. So you want them to be like genetically superior in that sense. You know, a lot of men do anyway. Bieber versus Stocky Supreme for Misfit ends after a body shot, ripping his heart out. Yeah, yeah, I'd kick Bieber's ass easily. I'd knock him out in the first round. Modern day girls are attracted to degenerate men. Haney, Broner, Davis, yeah, maybe blacks are attracted to them, maybe. A new trend in the looks maxing movement is called bone smashing. Men literally punch their own face on purpose to try and realign their facial structure to be more attractive. Should I do that? Should I like get like a hammer and chisel and try to like chisel my face to be a certain shape? What's up, nerdy? That singing is. Oh yeah, yeah. I've got the voice of an angel. I can sing. I could like be the modern day Frank Sinatra, innit? I did it my way. Should I do karaoke? I work in karaoke bars and I've seen some awful, awful singing. You know, boomers like butchering every song out there, every classic, you know. Oh, Berserk. I think I've heard of that actually. You never know, I might watch it. If someone pays me, I'll watch it, but I'll come up with a going rate first. Yeah, someone pays me a 20 pound or $20, should I say, to make it fair. A $20 super chat, and I'll watch Berserk. How about that? Do you have a meal plan or eat chicken and rice? No, I just right now I just eat whatever I want. But I eat a lot of protein. A lot. That's my primary diet is protein. Today I had fried chicken. Supermen or something else. I can't imagine how Gen Alpha are going to end up. Probably all have their bollocks cut off or something, and then just the human race will just be extinct. Nordic singing on stream before GTA 6. Yeah, yeah, that's something you never thought would happen, isn't it? What's up, Nordic? I will say your singing is levels above mine. Yours must be pretty bad then. You okay? Yes. I won't be too much longer. Okay. Also, height man. Is that the thing when they like have surgery on their knees and then it looks like they're on stilts and then they end up in wheelchairs? Yeah, I'm not saying that out loud. Andrew claims he's an alpha male. He's an alpha male former kickboxing world champion, but loses too hot to handle twink, can't punch. Guy's a bum and a fraud. Everyone on this chat, you could kick his ass. Yeah, probably. I've been saying for years he's a total bum. I was talking about that earlier. Again, he just leans back, so he's completely off balance, and then throws a front kick. Yeah, I didn't want to read that out loud because she was in the room. I didn't want to hear it out of context. But yeah, advice for men: develop yourself, hit gym, hair transplant, develop confidence, learn game. Advice for women: go. You deserve anything you want. Yeah, it doesn't always work out like that, though, does it? My main issue with Turkey is he surrounds himself with opportunistic morons. That Ring CEO is obviously he's obviously a nonce, and Hearn is just robbing the bank. Yeah, Hearn's a dickhead, isn't he? It's the equivalent having high standards with women. It's not them not being promiscuous and being a virgin, which is considered a high standard. Like they should all be virgins, as far as I'm concerned. If a woman's had like more than like one or two partners, she's not going to be able to pair bond, is she? Like sexual partners, I mean. I'm not just talking about going on a date, you know. The type of low self-esteem is what gets men into the hub. Yeah, stay away from the hub. Stay away from porn. Just don't go anywhere near that stuff. Use your imagination, you know. Watch Akira anime. It's really interesting. Akira. I think I've heard of that too, actually. I don't get it when someone who's from the other side of the world comes here, has a kid, and says the kid is British. No, that's just a tactic to get their kid British citizenship, so they get to stay. It's economic migration. No, I trained to get leaner. As you guys know, I was morbidly obese like 3 years ago. and I lost a lot of weight from boxing training and weight training. Now I'm just jacked. I'm just a big guy right now. Um, but I'm not like super fat. I'm just big and jacked. Um, do you know anything about Death Note? I've heard of Death Note. I think my cousin used to watch that. I never watched it though, so I don't know much about it. Tate was a low-level regional champ cosplaying as Elite. Has been doing nothing but beating up hookers and smoking cigars for the last decade. Yeah, yeah, I know. Who's Eve boxing? Um, Andrew Tate stated him losing will prevent people from committing suicide, since they will take motivation from him losing, reiterating that it's God's purpose that made him lose. I don't know, man. It's just pure cope, isn't it? Tate started an evolution of YouTubers contemplating going on a Misfits run. Yeah, well, I mean, no one that's in Misfits can actually fight, not at a decent, like, professional level anyway. And that includes Andrew Tate because he sucks. He was never a professional. He was garbage. I don't know it's that women are attracted to more feminine men as much as they know feminine men will simp for them. They'll cheat on them with chads that are assholes. Oh, maybe. But that doesn't mean that they won't go with effeminate men. They will. I've seen it myself. I've seen it time and time again. Women now seem to like effeminate men. They do. It's weird. I'm just as British as you, but what you did to my country through colonialism was evil. You owe my country reparations. Yeah, I don't owe nobody's country anything because I never invaded nobody, and neither did my ancestors. Yeah, they probably were. Either that or he just fought bums. God forbid I ever see a porno director. I have young cousins being exposed to it. Well, the porn industry is all about just degeneracy and then putting that degeneracy into people's minds and brainwashing them. That's all it is, mate. Stay well away from it, everybody. I had a friend back in school, and his parents are both Chinese. He said he's British. I told him he's Chinese because of location. Birth doesn't change your bloodline. Yeah, bloodline is more important than where you fell out of vagina. Like, if I go to Azerbaijan and have a kid there, my kid isn't Azerbaijani. My kid's still ethnically British. Back in a sec. I'm just going to the toilet. Here we go. Thoughts on with the Nigerian flag in his corner? Well, that just goes to show you where his allegiance lie, doesn't it? His allegiance doesn't lie with Britain. I mean, he said, "Don't shop in their shops," innit? What do you think he meant by that? He declared war on the people who support him. You know, but I blame all the idiot white boy football fans who sing, "Oh, Anthony Joshua." If someone like AJ can be British and Nigerian, why not? And how about Chinese, Turkish, and Lebanese too? The more the merrier. Hey, I'll take the recipes for their food, but they can go. I'm 5'11", and I would whoop Andrew Tate and all the bums from Misfits if I start training seriously. Yeah, same. Again, it's like you were saying before, most of the people in this chat probably would, you know? Yeah, I used to have a dog, had a couple of hamsters, had, fish, had 2 ferrets, as some of you guys know. Yeah, I've had a few pets. Um, it's difficult. The reason I don't want a pet right now is because I can't deal with when they end up dying because I get too attached to animals, and I still see when I lose an animal, I don't really get over it. Every animal that I've ever had, every pet, like when I lose them, it's like it plays in the back of my mind, and I can't get over the loss. I get way too attached to animals, so I find it difficult. But I would love to have another pet. I'm thinking of getting a cat actually, like a wee tabby cat or something. That'd be cute. Or if not, I'll get a dog, a German Shepherd. I used to think about getting like a German Shepherd and a Husky. I would get rats because rats are really good pets to have. The problem is they don't last very long. That's the sad thing about rats. They only live about 3 to 5 years, and they're too good for this world. Like they're so sociable, they're so easy to handle, and they're so empathetic and all that. Like they really do get on well with people. But the problem is, again, you don't get to spend a lot of time with them. You only have them a few years. So, and if they need surgery or whatever, it very rarely goes well. That's the same with ferrets. Like, I wouldn't buy another ferret, even though I love my ferrets and I miss them dearly, and the time I had with them was great. They don't last more than like 7 years. So, and most of them don't even last 3 years because they end up with health problems, and there's no like vets in the UK who are dedicated to fixing them. So I probably wouldn't get another ferret because I just wouldn't be able to deal with it. I can't go through that again. But I'd love to have a dog or a cat because they last a long time. So yeah, I probably would get another ferret or a rat if they would last longer. But because they won't, I'm not going to do that. I'd rather just have a cat or a dog because they last a lifetime. So yeah, that'd be better. So yeah, that's my history on pets, and I might end up getting more. But yeah, with all that being said, I'm probably gonna wrap this up. I don't know when my next live will be. I'll need to figure things out. I think I'm off work tomorrow, so what I'll probably do is I'll probably upload that video tomorrow, and I guess we can talk in the comments. Maybe I'll do a community post. Maybe I'll faff about on Twitter if anybody wants to contact me. If you want to talk about anything, we'll do that. But yeah, I'm working on Wednesday, and then of course January, very early January, I'm going to Poland, so I'm away for a week. So I probably won't be very active because I don't think I'll have much internet connection there. So yeah, a Mooncat or a Jack Russell, yeah. My girlfriend's mum has a Jack Russell. She's a beautiful little thing. I still play with her sometimes. Um, and yeah, that's all I got to say anyway. Thanks for watching, guys, and yeah, God bless.